Good evening, good evening, good evening. How's everybody doing out there? Have you had a wonderful meal? Are you enjoying your time here at the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony? Yes, yes. My name is Joe Costello. Happy and honored to be back once again. Let's take a moment to thank our host, Mr. Big Daddy Don Garlits. You may or may not know tonight's program will be streamed live around the world on Flow Sports and CompetitionPlus.com. So if you've got someone at home who would be interested in seeing this, watching our great inductees, please let them know. CompetitionPlus.com Flow Sports. It will also be on CBS Sports on television at some point in the future to be determined. We'll let you know on our Facebook page and on our website. But each year here at the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony, of course, we've got the amazing bar, and we want to get you all fired up because we do a live auction right at the start. You saw those two amazing toolboxes, the cooler, and we have a painting from Chris Ellis that is an absolute one of a kind. So much so that every inductee from 2025 is hidden in the painting. They're all back there in the back corner. I'm sure you saw them. The toolboxes are autographed by Big Daddy. They're autographed by our 2025 inductees, and we are going to put them up for auction right now. Now know this, every dollar that is raised goes right back into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. It is done on donations. We come here every year to celebrate the sport of drag racing, the acceleration contest that we've all devoted our lives to. So if you've got a race room, if you've got a man cave, if you've got a kitchen, if you've got a wonderful bedroom, those toolboxes will look tremendous inside. And so we're about to get started. I want to get you all ready and prime the pump. If you are an inductee for 2025, there is only one. And the folks have done such a great job. JW and Kim, where are you guys? JW and Kim, they do such a great job. 14th year supporting the Hall of Fame. The Garlits toolbox design is the 60s. Don has had a great relationship with the folks at Wynn's. Wynn's has been on board with Garlits throughout the 1960s, and this year, JW and Chuck decided to go with all black and white photos. Don Garlits, of course, has signed the toolbox. And the Hall of Fame inductees box, designed by JW and Kim, also features every one of this year's inductees. Special thanks to Paul Randall. Where's Paul? Cardinal Signs, located here in Gainesville, Florida. Paul's 5th year doing this, helping with the wrap, the layout, and the pinstriping. Plus Keaton Ellen Faulkner with the pinstriping have been on board for the last 3 years. So can you guys see the toolboxes? There you go. We're going to start out with the Garlits toolbox first. The Garlits toolbox first, then we'll do the Hall of Fame inductees. Who out there would like to start an opening bid for the Garlits toolbox? And we're going to start at $100. Who's in for $100? Rodney, thank you for getting it going. Rodney's on board. $200. Let's move it up. Mike Lewis is $200. Thank you, Mike. All right, J-Dub, where are you going with that? $500. That's what I like. You got to start low. Rodney says 6. Rodney says 6. Do we have $700 for the Big Daddy Don Garlits? You, sir, stand up for a moment. Let me see who you are. Let me see your beautiful face. We got $700, did you say? That's right, $700. Let's keep going. Get loud. $1,700. That's my man back there. Things just escalated very quickly. He knows this has to go fast. $2,000. J-Dub, $2,000. He built the box. He wants the box. Who's in for $2,100? $2,100 for the toolbox. We got $2,000. $2,100 for Big Daddy's toolbox. $2,100. We got $2,000 going once. We got $2,000 going twice. What is it? Ricky Smith, $2,200. Tricky Ricky elevates. Way to go, Ricky. Great job last year. Rodney, $2,500 says Rodney. Rodney's not going to let it go. Rodney is not going to let it go. We got do we have? Can I get $3,000? $3,000. Someone take the box at $3,000. All right, Ricky Smith is in for $3,000. Thank you for succumbing to the pressure, Ricky. That was a great job. $3,000. Can we go higher? $3,200. Who wants the Garlits box? It's one of a kind. 2025 Wynn's 1960s black and white photos. We got Ricky back there. What is it? Where are we? Was that 3,200? 3,200 now on the board. Things are going up. 3,200. This gentleman over here. How about 33? Can we keep working it up? 3,300 for the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction. We got 3,200 going once. 3,200 going twice. Yes, sir. 33? 3,300. We keep going up. 3,400. Rodney's not letting it go. He wants the box. Good job, Rodney. That's what you're supposed to do. 34. Do we have 3,500? We need 3,500. We got 34 to Rodney. It's going to stay in the family. 3,500. Who's got it? I need 35. 34 going. 3,500. This gentleman wants it. He saw how cool it is. Garlits signature. 36. 4,000. Rodney wants it bad. 4,000. 41. Do I have 42? Rodney. Just drop a number on him, Rodney. We got 4,100. Do we have 42? We need 4,200. 4,100 going once. 4,200. Sir, you want to come back? 43. 45. Tressie Rudga, you want to get in on this? You want to get 46? He said 45. So we have 4,500, sir. 46. We're going hundreds. Somebody make a move. If we get 4,600, can I get 5,000? Let's go. Let's make a move. Let's see what happens. We got 4,600 right now. 5,000, sir. Can you do it? 5,000. He says 5,100. Can you do 6,000? 6,000. Yeah. Mic drop. 6,000. Are you in on this? We got 6,000 going once. 6,000 going twice. Rodney. Tick tock. Tick tock. 6,000. 6,500. 7,000. 7,000. 7,000. 7,000. Confirm. 7,000. 7,000 going once. Anybody else? 7,000 going twice. 7,000 sold to this gentleman over there. Sir, stand up. Stand up. Thank you, sir. $7,000 for the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. The Garlits toolbox is always very popular, but so is the inductees toolbox, because you guys are all competing against each other to have the only one of its kind. And it's got Jim Head, Charlie Allen, Jay Howell, Vance and Hines. Those guys got a little bit of money. They got a little bit of money. It's all in there, plus our great sponsors. Look at the sponsors all on board. And it's all for the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Debbie Bader, Phil Burgess. Phil Burgess, he could just scare everybody. So let's start the bidding for the Hall of Fame toolbox at $500. Who's in for 500? JW, thank you very much. JW, 500. Okay, do I have 1,000? Do I have 1,000 for the Hall of Famers inductees? Tracy Rudka, thank you very much. We're at $1,000. All right, 1,200. Let's keep moving up. $1,200 for the Hall of Fame inductees. All right, we're at $1,000. So at about 1,100. 1,100, yes sir, $1,100. $1,200. Who wants it? This guy's got it for $1,100. Jimmy Prock, you want to get in on this? He says no. He says no. All right, we're at $1,100. Do I see 1,200? Do I see 1,200 out there? 1,200. I'm missing somebody. Oh, way over there. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. 1,200. All right, let's move it up. How about 1,300? 1,300. Sir, you coming back? 1,400? 1,400. We got two guys bidding. 1,500? 1,500. Sir, you want to make a move? This guy's fighting you for it. How about $3,000? 1,300 or $3,000? $3,000. That's the right move. 3,000. Are you still in, sir? 3,000. Hall of Fame inductees, one of a kind, never be produced again. Do I get? So what? 3,100? 3,100. He's inching up again. 3,100. Who else is in this? Where are the Hall of Fame inductees? Get on in this. Get in on this, guys. Can I get 32? Can I get 32? We got 3,100 going once. 3,100 going twice. 3,100 sold. Congratulations, sir. The Hall of Fame inductees toolbox. Was that Ricky? said $16,500, but for what? Yes. No, I know. We raised a lot of money last year. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing. We didn't serve enough alcohol. It's all right. We'll keep on working. We'll keep on working. Hey, we got the cooler up there, and let's see the cooler, guys. Put the cooler up on the screen. Cooler is amazing. Don Garlits Museum of Drag Racing, International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Let's see that cooler up there. You've seen it back there. Let's start the bidding in on the cooler at $100. $100 for the cooler. JW, in on the cooler, $100. All right. Do we have 200? Check out that cooler for your man cave. $500. Who said that? 500 back there. Thank you, sir. All right, we're up to $600 for the cooler. For the International, JW says 6. He knows what it's worth. 7? $700 for the cooler. Do I have 8? We got 7 on the board. Do I have 8? Who's in on 8? I see someone waving. Is he waving to someone outside? Sir. We got $700. What about $800? Rodney is in for $800. $900. Let's push this thing up. $900 for the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. We got 9. We got 8 for Rodney. 8 going once. Yes, sir. 900. $1,000. You going 5? $1,000. $1,000 to that gentleman right there for that awesome cooler with the pinstriping. Look at it. The International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. It's got the bottle opener. $1,000. Do we have 1,100? Do we have 1,100 out there? Who wants it? $1,100. All right, 1,000 going once. 1,000 going twice. 1,000 sold to the gentleman back there in the back. Sir, congratulations. Chris Ellis is an award-winning artist. His paintwork has won awards from DuPont for the Hot Hues calendar in 2004. He's won the Astounding Paint Award at the Detroit Autorama, and he has painted for this evening's event. Tonight's artwork, done by Chris Ellis of Ellis Signs and Custom Painting, features images and symbolism representing all of the 2025 International Drag Racing Hall of Fame inductees. Gary Scelzi's in there, of course. Gary right down here, excited to see the Wild Thing. Jim Head, Charlie Allen, Jay Howell, Terry Vance, Byron Hines, Gary Dyer, Phil Burgess, Debbie Bader, and of course, the setting for the entire scheme is Summit Motorsports Park. So this is fine art, folks, one of a kind, and it can be yours. We're going to start the bidding at $500 for Chris Ellis's paint work back there. $800. JW is going to join us. Going to start the ball rolling for the one-of-a-kind piece of artwork. 8, do we have 9? Looking for $2,000. World champion Austin Prock is on the board. You saw it. It's amazing. It's badass is what he says. Sorry, Garlits. Badass. All right, $2,000 on the board. Austin Prock, do I have 3,000? You guys know that this is serious. What's that? We got 3,000 on the board. Do I hit 3,500? $4,000. Chad Head, way to go, Chad. $4,000. 4,500. 45. 4,500. Austin Prock. Yeah, he wants it. Gary Scelzi, right? Jim Head. Chad, are you going to get in on this? He's got 4,500 for this piece of artwork. 45. It's Austin Prock. He says he's going to beat you on the track and he's going to beat you here. 4,500 going once. $5,000. I like it. We got 5,000 on the board. This is our final auction item. Then we'll get started with the show. We got $5,000 on the board. 5,500. 5,000 going once. 5,000 going twice. $5,000 sold to the gentleman right there. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for our auction items. Each year we do this, but know that the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame is funded by these donations when you purchase an auction item, but you can certainly do so at home as well, and all your friends can donate as well. So we are moments away from starting the show. Thank you very much. Remember, you can pick up your items in the Hawthorne room next door. We also have the t-shirts and your glasses and everything that you get by being a part of it. The t-shirts are $20 or maybe even more, but it's an amazing t-shirt. We'll be starting the show momentarily. Thank you so much.
probably the worst, most we'll have to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are 2 minutes from airtime. 2 minutes till the start of the Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Ocala, Florida, the home of the Don Garlits Museum of Drag Racing. It's a monument to the great machines that have captivated generations of fans. And it's also a shrine to those who invented, built, and raced those machines. Every one of those men and women have played a role in the evolution of drag racing. But only a select few make it into the Hall of Fame. And tonight, we welcome International Drag Racing Hall of Fame class of 2025.
Hello and welcome to the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony. My name is Joe Costello and I'll be your host and MC this evening as we delve into the world of drag racing across the globe. On its surface, drag racing is such a simple sport, an acceleration contest from start to finish, but when you add in the teams, the drivers, the technology, it becomes very complicated. Those people in this room tonight are the best of the best. They've conquered every mountain and they've earned their way into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Tonight's broadcast is being streamed live on Flow Sports around the world, as well as competitionplus.com. We thank those of you that are at home. We encourage you to share the show as we are going to celebrate some of the greatest drag racers on the planet. They will be inducted by a who's who of the folks in the sport from yesteryear and today. You're certainly going to hear some tremendous stories from the track, from the shop, and from the winner's circle. We could not do this, though, without the one man who was such an innovator that he became the genuine legend. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to our host this evening, Mr. Big Daddy Don Garlits. Don will be introducing our inductees this evening in a video made at the Museum of Drag Racing. If you have never been to Don Garlits Museum of Drag Racing, I encourage you to go there and spend between 5 to 17 hours because it is an amazing, amazing place in the historical record of the sport of drag racing. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We're going to keep the show moving, and we're going to hear some great stories. Of course, we got Gary Scelzi, the wild thing in the house. Gary, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Jim Head, so excited to see you get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Phil Burgess, and so many others. We're going to have a good time and have a lot of fun. Remember these moments and know that in and amongst us, the future of drag racing is bright. We have got so many young stars out there. We already spent a little time with our reigning funny car world champion, Austin Prock, is in the house. And so those of you who have worked so hard to put drag racing on the map, know that the people in this room, many are here to carry it into the next generation. So let's get started. Let's throw it to the video and meet our first inductee, Mr. Big Daddy Don Garlits going to tell us who.
Charlie Allen started his racing career driving super stocks, kind of like this red car here. But that's not what made him famous. He was the manager of Orange County International Raceway in Orange County, California. And that was run by him till it closed in 1983. Then Charlie went to Phoenix and from scratch built the Firebird Raceway, which was one of the most famous racetracks of all time. Now, I have to tell you a story about Firebird. This car was debuted at Firebird Raceway, and that wing stand collapsed on me at 250 miles an hour. I rolled this car through the lights at 248 miles an hour on the clocks and walked away. It says a lot for the safety innovations that put in drag racing. Please welcome Charlie Allen to the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Miss Cindy Gibbs will be making the presentation.
Hi, everyone. I'm nervous, so bear with me for a second. I'm Cindy Gibbs, and I am so freaking excited to be here tonight. Most of you know me as Steve Gibbs' daughter, and I'm very proud to have that distinction. My dad wanted to pass along his congratulations to all the inductees tonight. He's on the selection committee, and this is a big thrill for him every year. If I may take a few seconds, most of you know that my dad and his Lady Marge lost everything in a house fire back in November. And at 84 years old, it's been tough to watch him have to go through this. But the drag racing community has been amazing, and I want to thank you as his daughter for all the love and support that you've sent his way. I really, truly appreciate it. So, why we're here tonight? We're here to celebrate my good friend Charlie Allen and all the successes he's had in his career, starting out as a driver and as a successful track operator. And but if I can, I'd like to send you home with some personal memories that I have of him that started as a young girl. I stand before you literally as Charlie Allen's #1 fan. I met Charlie about 57 years ago when I was 5 years old, and my dad was managing the original Irwindale Raceway. That place was magical to me. If you've been there, you know the smell of In-N-Out burgers and the beautiful San Gabriel Mountains in the background. It was where my love of drag racing was born. It was all I ever wanted to do was to be at the racetrack. Wild Willie Borsch, Rich Guasco and the Pure Hell Fuel Altered, Pure Heaven, Pure Hell, I mean, those guys were amazing. I loved the Fuel Altereds, but it was the funny cars for me. And Charlie had made the transition from AFX to funny car, and he and Gasronda, oh my God, I had a big schoolgirl crush on those two. Charlie was the all-American boy, good-looking, clean-cut, and he had my heart. I was a little 5-year-old girl, wide-eyed, sitting in the grandstands, and I loved me some Charlie Allen. He was a friend to our family. He was kind enough to share his funny car rig with us when my dad was managing Fremont, and that ended. He let us use his rig to bring our family belongings back to SoCal. In 1971, Charlie retired from racing, a very successful racing career, but he went into real estate development. But luckily, the lure of drag racing brought him back, and a good thing for us, in 1979, he took over the legendary track, super track, OCIR, Orange County International Raceway. If you were in Southern California, Orange County was the place to be. The 64 funny car shows, bug-ins, Super Chevy, NHRA World Finals, they were all held at OCIR. One of my first paying jobs as a teenager was hawking t-shirts there at Orange County. I was so excited I was working for Charlie. The smell of hot dogs, stale beer, getting harassed by the servicemen out of El Toro, it was awesome. It was all I ever wanted to do, was be at the racetrack. Sadly, OCIR closed in 1983, but Charlie took his amazing energy and went to Chandler, Arizona, and opened Firebird. I mean, how much do we love the track operator? I mean, I really feel like the track operator doesn't get enough credit. I mean, racing's all about the stars and the cars, but without the track operator, we don't have a playground. And Charlie did a masterful job there at Firebird for years. In 1986, I'm now working for NHRA, and I was thrilled when I got the opportunity to start working with the Division 7 certification team. My very first race was in January of that year, and I'll never forget it for a few reasons. I was so excited to be working my first event. Graham Light was division director, Cloy Fitzgerald was our tech director, and I'm working with Charlie again. But the other distinction for that event is it marked the heroic return of Miss Shirley Muldowney after her horrific crash that happened 18 months earlier. Charlie was so wise in scheduling his divisional 2 weeks before Pomona. All the Nitro guys showed up and he'd sink the place. The fans showed up to watch Shirley go down the quarter mile. I'll never forget it. Mad respect for you. I didn't see Charlie much for the next couple of decades, and in 2010, I found myself in Spokane, Washington, of all places. I'd gone to work there at that track. I was working for Bucky Austin. I was supposed to just be answering phones and doing a little marketing and PR, and things didn't go so well for us that year. We lost the operator agreement, and I wasn't sure what I was doing. I guess I was heading back to SoCal. Well, Ron Hodgson called me one night and said, we're going to get that track back, Cindy. And the smartest thing he did was recruit Charlie Allen as co-operator, and now I'm going to work for Charlie Allen big time. I was so in over my head, I can't even tell you. And Charlie knew it. But he was honest with me. He sat there with me and told me, I'll be honest, Cindy, you're going to struggle, but we're not going to let you fail. He was there for me. He says, you'll get better and then you'll be great. And I don't think I was ever great, but I was better under your guidance. That deal ended in 2012, and in 2013, Charlie retired from Firebird. And when I heard he was having his last big event, I wanted to be there and give him a big hug and a congratulatory I love you. One of the things Charlie would give me a hard time about at Spokane was sometimes we'd get a guy coming over and wanted to bring his rig from Boise, and they wanted to park at our event for our upcoming Nitro deal, and Charlie would go, don't do that, you're gonna lose control of ticketing, these guys are getting in for free, don't do that. So when he had his final event in 2013, no one knew I was going. I pulled into the track and I lied my way through every gate and into the suites, and I couldn't wait to tell him that I got in for free. If you know, you know. In 2019, in the spring, I got a phone call from Chuck Sundstrom, Charlie's longtime manager. Charlie's in the hospital and he's not gonna make it. He may not make it through the night. My mom was dying of pancreatic cancer that same week, and it was about all I could take. But the doctors figured it out, and I cannot tell you how happy I am to see him sitting here right now. My father's on the selection committee, and when Garlits called him to tell him a few months ago that Charlie made the cut, he could not wait to tell me. Charlie loves to tell me, no woman has ever loved me as long as you have, Cindy. And I believe him when he says that. Thank you, Charlie, for everything you have given to the sport of drag racing. We all owe you a debt of gratitude. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being such a good friend to me and my family, for being a good teacher and a mentor, and my very best friend through the weirdest years of my life. So, as the woman who has loved him longest, it is my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce to you the latest inductee into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame, Mr. Charlie Allen.
Well, just about everything I had on my speech, she said. So, first I'd like to thank Don Garlits, Steve Gibbs, and the committee for inducting me. This is the greatest honor I've ever had. Thank you, Don. My love for the sport started when I was in high school and college. I street raced a lot. And I started drag racing in 1965 with the help of Dodge. At the end of 71, I decided to quit drag racing and become a custom home builder, which is what I'd gone to college for, was architecture and engineering. While I loved building homes, in a few years I realized I loved drag racing more. And so, oh no. Bernie Partridge was a really good friend of mine. A lot of you know him, or knew him. He and I started to do worked on resurrecting Fontana Raceway, and but to no avail. So a couple years later, Bernie called me one day and he says, "Charlie, get a hold of Bill Donor. He wants to get out of Orange County. He wants to go down fishing in Cabo San Lucas." So, and Bill was a really good friend of mine. We played a lot of golf together. So I called Bill and I said, "Let's get together." And so I met him at Balboa Bay Club for lunch, and we struck a deal. And in famous Donor, the way he did things, we signed the deal. We wrote the deal out on a napkin and signed it, and that was the deal. And so I was back in drag racing. So it is. It is. So I would like to thank, I had a lot of great employees at Orange County, Firebird over the years. A lot I can't remember, but I'd like to thank a few of them. And one of them is Lynn Rose at Orange County, super dear friend. I inherited her with the track. She worked for Donor, and when I bought it, she wanted to work for me. I guess she needed a job, but anyway. She was an extremely good employee. In fact, she's the one that told me to go look at Firebird Lake, because I'd been out looking at property and everything to build a track. And so that's when I went to Firebird, and it obviously had a lot of potential. At Firebird, it would be Frankie Buckman, and she was my general manager she worked for me for over 20 years. She started in the sales department, ended up general manager, and then Chuck Sundstrom, who I thought was going to be here tonight, worked for me almost that long, and he was track manager and also took care of everything on the outside. I had a whole thing here on Ron Hodson and Cindy, that's Spokane, but she kind of went over all that. I did have one, let's see. Yeah, I said, and Cindy Gibbs as manager, and she was the star. And she was. The years of having Orange County and Firebird, truly the best years of my life. In fact, I wasn't going to say anything about 5.5 years ago, I got cancer, beat it, but the night that I went into ICU, 2 different doctors came in and said I wasn't gonna make it till the next day. And you always wonder what, when it's kind of like that at you. And so I was sitting there and I was laying there in bed, and I went, you know what? I've had a hell of a life. I have had a great life. I have done most everything I've ever wanted to do. And so, kind of like when you drive a race car, your number's up, your number's up. So, but anyway, I woke up the next morning, and so, lastly, I would like to, and most importantly, my family, and most of them are here. My daughter Kelly was planning to be here, had a ticket, but her husband had an injury at work, so she didn't make it. But if you guys would stand up when I call your name. Chuck, my oldest son. And his wife, Katrine. And my 2 beautiful granddaughters. Turn around so they can see you. And then my middle son, Jason, who a lot of you know, he's got pro things. And then my youngest son, Jared, who growing up he got in a lot of trouble. And I was referred to him as the dumb kid. And I can't do that anymore. I got to refer to him as Dr. Allen, because he's a professor at Texas Tech in, guess what, entrepreneurship. So that's it. I just want to thank everybody again very much, and especially Don Garlits.
Please pause for photos. Alex from Auto Injury. You want them on this side? Head over to the other side of the stage, guys. Charlie and Cindy, other side. Over here. Alex. Stay on stage.
Behind you?
Yes. Okay. There you go, Alex. We got them right where you want them. And in the meantime, Robin Jackson from the British Motorsports Hall of Fame, please come up. Where's Robin? Congratulations, Charlie.
Thank you.
Cindy, please hang tight, because Robin from the British Drag Racing Hall of Fame has got some news and some interesting things to tell us a little bit about. Robin, please welcome.
I'm a director of the British Drag Racing Hall of Fame, and each November we have a banquet similar to this at which we induct our new inductees, our new members. We have one particular award that we don't award every year. We keep it in reserve for special occasions if we have a distinguished overseas guest visiting us. The original recipient of that was Don Garlits. In 2017, it was our privilege to present the Global Achievement Award, as we call it, to Steve Gibbs. As you know, Steve lost everything in his house fire late last year. Word reached us that one of the things that he was most disappointed to lose was his Global Achievement Trophy. So we've had another one made. Steve obviously is not here with us tonight, but Cindy is. So, if you would be kind enough, please, to accept this, it would be our privilege to present it all over again and perhaps take it home to your dad.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin and Jeff Stillwell and group. It's hard to even describe watching your father go through something like this at this stage in his life. And I've always likened my father to be kind of like our George Bailey, if you're familiar with the movie It's a Wonderful Life. At the end, George runs into a little bit of problem, but the community is there for him. And my dad's done so much for the sport of drag racing. That's not just his oldest daughter speaking, it's just the absolute truth. And our industry is much better off for knowing Steve Gibbs. So thank you for this. I really, really appreciate it. I can't wait to get this in his hands.
And Cindy? The International Drag Racing Hall of Fame has done the same, reproduced Steve Gibbs Hall of Fame trophy.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Don. This means everything. This means so much to him. You can imagine 85 years old, all the artifacts and awards and memorabilia that he's collected over a 60-plus year career. And his Hall of Fame trophy was a beloved part of that. So thank you, Don. I really appreciate this. Thanks, everybody.
And ladies and gentlemen, Robin has got a few words. We've lost several of our Hall of Fame inductees from the past, but going to give us a little information. Robin, going to give us a word about Mr. Ron Hope.
Yes, we have a number of international ambassadors for the British Drag Racing Hall of Fame, and Ron Hope was one of those. He was a great help to us and a great supporter of the Hall of Fame. And we were so disappointed to lose him last year. At the Gator Nationals in 2022, the last time I was here, when it was wet, as you may well recall, I wandered around the pits for a fair amount of time with Ron, and he was chatting to people and saying, you know, hi. And we stood at one point chatting to a man for it must have been 20, 25 minutes. And at the end of it, I stood there, you know, patiently listening in and watching. At the end of it, they parted, and I said to Ron, who was that? And he said, I have no idea. So that was Ron. He was such a great friend to the British Drag Racing Hall of Fame, and of course a great racer, bringing Rat Trap over and running it both at the Goodwood Festival of Speed and latterly at Sandipod Raceway. So in memoriam, Ron Hope. Thank you, Ron.
Coming up, Pat Garlits Memorial Award winner Debbie Bader. But first, one of drag racing's unsung heroes goes into the hall. He was a designer, he was a builder, and he was a driver. We're talking about Jay Howell. We'd like to thank our sponsors who make it all possible for the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony to take place, including Wynn's since 2022, and the IHRA, the International Hot Rod Association.
In the high-performance world, saving weight is critical. You can save more than 40 pounds of unsprung weight with wheels from Lightspeed Racing. Lightspeed Racing makes the world's best lightweight performance wheels and accessories, including forged magnesium wheels, lighter than carbon fiber, better tensile and fatigue strength than forged aluminum. Lightspeed Racing, nearly endless colors and finishes, and 100% custom made. Choose record-setting, race-proven, custom wheels from lightspeedracing.com.
Welcome back to the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Now is the time where we honor each and every member that is here in attendance. I would like to ask all of our Hall of Fame members, Founders Award winners, and Pat Garlits Memorial Award winners to please stand up and be recognized. Oh yes, stand up. That's right. And we're going to mention you by name. Roy Hill in the house. What's up, Roy? I see Mike Lewis. Stay standing, Mike Lewis. Frank Hawley. Ricky Smith. Ray Moats, hanging out with Ray earlier. Harry Hibbler. The Greek is in the house. Where's Chris? Chris is in the house. Shirley Muldowney, Joe Schubeck in the house. We got it going on, of course, Don Garlits in the house. Bruce Larson is here with us. Laura South, Dave Portman, Shirley, Steve Earwood, Dave Densmore, Kenny Youngblood. Happy wedding anniversary. 45 years. Pat Baltus, Steve Reyes made the trip. Thank you, Steve. Everybody, did we not mention anyone? Someone missed out on the list? There's Steve Reyes. Hey, what you're doing on Facebook with the photographs are amazing, amazing. Thank you very much, Steve, for making the trip. And Ted Jones. Ted, where's Ted? Stand up. Ted, of course, Masters Entertainment, streaming all the production. Everything you see that comes from the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame is Masters Entertainment Group. And if you're looking to have your live event streamed, you definitely want to reach out to Masters Entertainment, genuine legends, and Hall of Famer. Thank you, Ted. Amazing stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our next inductee, which means here's Big Daddy.
Jay Howell, one of the pioneers of drag racing from the 60s and the 70s. He worked for Dick Branstner in Troy, Michigan, and he built the little red wagon that everybody knows about that Bill Golden drove. He also built the rear engine Dart that they gave to me for Emery Cook to drive, which we flipped over backwards at Detroit Dragway in 1966. We had to have a car real quick because we had a match race circuit. So Jay Howell came down to my shop just down the street, and we put together this Roadster Dart, another plastic body car with a tubing frame, the first of its kind in drag racing. Jay Howell later went on to open his own shop, Automotive Engineering, and built many cars for drag racing. Please welcome Jay Howell into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame, and Jack Beckman will be making the presentation.
I want to clarify a few things. Robin from England, where are you, sir? Please repeat after me. Say, brilliant. Okay, you passed the test. You're English. Secondly, it's pronounced aluminum. We can work on that later. That's American humor, sorry. Secondly, there's no way Cindy Gibbs is 62 years old. That can't be possible. Next, you're going to tell me Muldowney's in her 80s, Garlits is 93, and Kara Messina's is, well, he's still lying about his age, so we really don't know, huh? You know, when everybody's supposed to stand up and Greek doesn't stand up, nobody should stand up, right? Here to induct Jay Howell. As a kid growing up around drag racing, and for me it's been 50 years of this and I was hooked. Cindy said Orange County International Raceway. Charlie, thank you. That set the hook. That addiction has stayed here for 51 years and it never goes away. But what you hope is when you're young and these people that are 8 feet tall when they get out of these race cars, they're going to be your heroes. They're going to be your idols. And as you get older, you realize they're not necessarily heroes and they shouldn't be worshiped as idols, but you hope they're good people. Fast forward to 8 years ago, I'm racing Fuel Funny car at Indy. I'm a historian. I love sneaking over to the other side of the track until the crew chiefs call me and say, we're supposed to warm up, you ought to come back. But they're doing a car show and they're parading cars back up the return road. And I'm listening to the announcer. It might have been Joe doing it at the time. And they say, and here's Jay Howell in his Anglia. And whoever I was standing next to, I said, any chance you think that's the Jay Howell? And they said, yeah, it is. And I'm thinking I have to go meet him. So I went and got the scooter as soon as they were done with this car parade. I hauled butt over the other side of the racetrack, and I walked up to him. And I said, my name's Jack Beckman. I didn't know you were still alive. Not to offend, but I don't know. You were like one of the legends when I grew up. I didn't know if you were 117 now, and here you are. It was just odd being face to face and eye to eye with somebody that I thought was 10 feet tall. And it's sad that Jay didn't make it to his induction, but it's awesome that before Jay passed, he knew he was being inducted into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. So his sons, Kurt and Brett, are going to come up here. But before that, Kurt and I exchanged a lot of emails, and he sent me a lot of old pictures. And I thought I knew the Jay Howell story, and I hadn't scratched the surface. As I started reading a lot of this stuff, and I got to digress for a second, I got a call from Don Garlits a year ago. He said, Jack, I'd like to put you on the selection committee for the Drag Race Hall of Fame. Would you like to think about that? I said, yes. He said, you'd like to think about that? I said, no. The answer is yes. It was about as quick as when Robert Hite called last year and he said, hey, I got a job offer for you. Yes. The honor of being able to select the people that are going to get inducted into the shrine that immortalizes our sport is beyond anything I could have ever dreamed of. And one of the other selectors, Greg Sharp, along with Steve Gibbs, Harry Hibbler, Ted Jones, Greg is having vision problems. That's a euphemism for Greg's gone blind. And I called Don and I said, look, I don't know if this is a conflict of interest. I don't know how this works, but would you mind if I drove up to where Greg is and helped him work on his paperwork for his selections to the Drag Race Hall of Fame? And Don said that would be fine. So I'm sitting with Greg in his room and he said, hey, you got to go to my computer, type this in. And it was this huge article on Jay Howell that he wrote. And he said, and that's why I'm nominating Jay Howell. And the more I read, I'm like, yeah, yes, 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 and yes. I want to cut my time short. I want to allow Kurt and Brett a few more minutes to talk about somebody who was a hero to a lot of people, but more importantly, he was a father to them. So on behalf of Jay Howell, Kurt and Brett Howell, for the next inductee into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Jack. Sweetie, how do I get your phone to work? Okay.
Is this thing on?
I knew the date.
Yeah.
At least I knew the date. First of all, thank you. It's quite an honor to be here. I'm a little nervous, so please hang with me. Thank you, Don, and thank you everyone involved in putting this night together. I consider it a real privilege. You got this. I got it. To play a small role in honoring all the inductees. Thank you. In 1960 and 1970, at 5 and 6 years old, I had my drag racing career all mapped out. All I had to do was change my name to Don. Don Garlits, Don Perdome, Don Shoemaker, Don Gay, Don Nicholson, all greats. Well, that's where it all went wrong for me. I never changed my name to Don. So here's some things I remember from back in the day. One summer evening in 1970, Brett and I are at the kitchen table in our house in Warren, Michigan, and my dad bursts through the door. He's all excited, and he comes in and he throws this giant wad of money on the table. He had just won the Grand Nationals in Detroit. It was like on TV, you know, there's a pile of money and we're just throwing it in the air to you little kids. It was quite thrilling. That was a great moment. Other things that I remember were Brett and I would take turns. You know, we were pretty young, but we got to go to the races when they were local. And Brett and I would take turns riding back in the Mustang with the body up, sitting on my dad's lap, steering the car, crowd cheering. What a thrill that was. Visiting the Logie shop and Al Burglar's shop when I was little was just, I always wanted to go. I'm sure every time I asked my dad every day if I could go to work with them. All the cars, all the people, everything going on, the activity. It was just, I was quite in awe. Another highlight was every once in a while, if my dad got home late at night and he happened to be driving the rig, the big crew cab truck with the Warhorse Mustang sitting on the back, he would drop me off at school. I felt like I was 10 feet tall. And getting out of that thing and strutting into the school, I was the coolest kid there. When I got a little older, like 16, 18 years old, I had a big issue with burning the tires off my car on the street. At that time, my dad owned a tire dealership. So there was a constant debate with my dad and I that he should give me a better deal on tires. Of course, he didn't agree. So one day we were in this debate, and he was basically right in my face yelling at me, "I've never known anyone that can burn through tires like you can." And I just sat there for a moment, and I looked at him. I kind of got this little smirk on my face, and I go, "I guess you haven't looked in the mirror in a while, J. Howell." While living in Texas, I would spend a lot of time on Sundays watching drag racing with my dad on TV. He always loved the sport, never lost his love for the sport. And, by then I was a little older and I was able to ask maybe a little more mature questions. I think I had finally realized at that time that, he quit driving when he was less than 30, like 28 years old. So I asked him, I said, weren't people mad at you? Weren't people angry that you quit so young when you had all this in front of you? It was 1970, like one of the greatest decades in drag racing was getting ready to happen. And he would just kind of look at me and smile, and he said, "No one was as pissed as you." Finally, when I think of the sport of drag racing and the drag racing community, the term passion always comes to my mind. It's my opinion that no other sport or profession exists that defines passion any better than drag racing. I bet everyone in this room would agree. After all, we are here celebrating that passion. My dad had that passion, and it was proven in all he accomplished in this sport and profession in a relatively short time. In fact, he never imagined he would be honored like this. But while revisiting all the photos, articles, and history of my dad in those 8 years, I'm even more amazed at all that he accomplished. It's truly impressive. No matter how many other pursuits in life, and he had many, that same drag racing spirit of passion, determination, fearlessness, and plain old hard work served him quite well. He was certainly driven to succeed in everything he did. Just as it must be true for all the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame inductees, past, present, and future, they don't lift. I don't believe they know how to lift. My dad certainly never lifted. Thank you.
So as it was mentioned earlier, my dad never thought he would be inducted. Frankly, as Kurt mentioned, he always thought his career was just a little too short. Did a lot in that, obviously, that period of time, but he confided to me, some of those guys in there raced for 30 and 40 years. I don't have a record like that. So he was, to say the least, he was quite surprised when he found out. So to give you a little background, a little quick story on that. So I'm at his apartment. He didn't live too far from me. And he had, as he often would do, he misplaced his phone. So I, again, found his phone. "Dad, here's your phone, Dad." "Dad, you got a call from Don Garlits. He left you a voicemail message." "Why would Don Garlits call me?" "Well, let's find out, Dad." So that's when he really got the news. That would have been sometime in September of last year. And unfortunately, needless to say, he was quite surprised. Unfortunately, soon after that, he went to the hospital. He was in the hospital for about a month into October. But he asked me multiple times, when's that ceremony? When is that ceremony going to be? I said, "Well, Dad, it's not till March. We're going to get you out of here, and we're going to get you stronger." He goes, "Oh, boy, I got to get better. I got to be there for that." So unfortunately, obviously, he ended up passing away toward the end of October. But say the least. It's really quite an honor that he's now going to be recognized, as was mentioned earlier, as the the best of the best, right? And in a class all by himself with all these other great inductees. And thank you very much for that. That his short time, that his accomplishments and his legacy will live on as part of this Hall of Fame. So thank you very much. It's really a blessing to our families. Thank you.
Form up for a photo for auto imagery. There you go. Congratulations on your induction. And ladies and gentlemen, we are just getting started. We'd like to invite to the stage from Wynn's Antonio Sanchez Ortiz, who is a brand manager at Wynn's and has supported the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame for the past several seasons. The folks at Wynn's have been involved in drag racing for so many years, and having them come back here at the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame has been tremendous. Antonio, please join us on the stage and address the crowd. We thank you so much, and they've got a special surprise for each table out there.
First off, can we get a round of applause just for the amount of immense talent that is here today? It's really great. So, as mentioned, my name's Antonio. I'm the Senior Brand Manager for Wynn's. Welcome to the 35th Annual International Drag Racing Hall of Fame, presented by Wynn's. I want to take the opportunity to thank Don Garlits and the Garlits Museum of Drag Racing for the continued partnership with Wynn's, and be the first to recognize tonight's newest International Drag Racing Hall of Fame members. Wynn's knows the drivers, innovators, and founders, like each of you, are the backbone and foundation of the NHRA and the great sport of drag racing. Wynn's is proud and fortunate to continue to play a role in furthering the sport and all of racing. On behalf of Wynn's, thank you for joining us tonight and enjoy the ceremony. Now, before I leave, if you would each look at the program card that was in your bag, each table, there is one program at each table that has a red swampy stamp. If you have that stamp after the ceremony is over, you can present that card in the Hawthorne room for one of these Wynn's bags. All right, so with that, thank you, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
Coming up from Gainesville, Florida, more drag racing legends, including NHRA National Dragster editor Phil Burgess and Pat Garlits Memorial Award winner Debbie Bader. Special thanks to Summit Racing Equipment for your support of the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame, and Stewart Cycle for your support.
AMSOIL runs on freedom and has since 1972. We changed the industry by formulating the first API-qualified 100% synthetic motor oil. The rest of the market has been trying to follow our lead ever since. But a head start is a head start. We punish our products firsthand in our world-class laboratories and beyond, because some things can't be learned from a test tube. Run with us.
The Roy Hill Drag Racing School is the original and most trusted school. If you don't have a race car yet, Roy Hill does.
If you don't have a race car, don't worry. I got plenty of them down here.
Roy furnishes insurance only at safe tracks.
The number one thing I teach here is safety.
You'll get step-by-step instruction in the classroom and on the track. Every student leaves Roy's school with a license.
I can get you an IHRA license or NHRA.
Go to RoyHillDragRacingSchool.com.
You want to learn how to drag race? Come to Roy Hill.
Each year at the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame, we dedicate a moment of remembrance to those we have lost. Linda Jones, Ted Zeus, Rosalie Noble, Ron Hope, Allison Lee, Lee Edwards, Jay Howell, Wally Booth, and Bill Shrewsbury. Gone but not forgotten.
You know, in drag racing, there are so many nice, sweet ladies that do so much for the sport and never get any recognition. My wife, Pat, she always thought that we should do something for these women. So after she passed away, I thought about that, and we formed the Pat Garlits Memorial Award that goes to some lady in drag racing that you never heard of but made a large contribution to drag racing. Debbie Bader is just such a lady. Her and her husband Bill started a little country drag strip in Norwalk, Ohio that you'd never think would ever amount to anything. We used to do little match races there. But they worked on that strip and they brought it up to standards, and today it has an NHRA Summit Nationals there. It is the Summit Motorsports Park, and it offers so many conveniences to spectators that were never thought of before. And Debbie Bader had a big part in all of that. So tonight, the Pat Garlits Memorial Award is given to Debbie Bader. She really deserves it. And here to present Debbie Bader is Bill Jr.
Don, thank you. I'm going to go off script for 1 second because there is only one man in the world that can wear a tuxedo without a bow tie and pull it off, and that man is Jack Beckman. Way to go, Jack. I love you, Jack. The Pat Garlits Memorial Award started in 2012 to honor the life and legacy of Pat Garlits. It's given to a woman who contributed to the success of a spouse involved in the sport or contributed to the success of the sport by their actions both on and off the drag strip. Pat's life remains a guiding light for women in motorsports, and we honor her and we thank her for her extraordinary contributions to this great community. I read on the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame page that Debbie Bader is the recipient of the annual Pat Garlits Memorial Award. With her late husband, my father, Bill Bader, they transformed a humble drag strip in Norwalk, Ohio, into one of the all-time great drag racing facilities, now known as Summit Motorsports Park, host of the annual Summit Racing Equipment NHRA Nationals. The family raised the bar on customer experience and satisfaction and showed a whole generation of track operators how to do it. Well, with the last name of Bader in drag racing, extraordinary responsibility and expectations follow. My father created those expectations in a life dedicated to motorsports and the men and women who love it. Together with my family, sister Bobby, my wife Jamie, my son Evan, daughter-in-law Kelly, Debbie, my management team, and 430 event staff, we collectively strive to not only meet but exceed expectations both on and off the track every time, without excuses or rest. My father is credited with extraordinary accomplishments in our sport, all well-deserved, and yet he did not do all the work himself. He surrounded himself with a handful of key people who brought his vision to life, and no one understood this more than Debbie Bader. Growing up a Bader is hard work. My father saw to it. Bill Bader Sr. was a demanding, hard-nosed, unapologetic visionary who believed that our sport could be better, that we could be better. My dad's style of management was simple. He threw you into the deep end of the pool to see if you'd sink or swim. And while most survived, there are more than a few bodies buried on our 300 acres. And while Dad was the architect, he needed people to bring his passion and his vision to life. And the woman who was responsible for that from the onset was Debbie. I read earlier that the family raised the bar on customer experience and satisfaction and showed a whole generation of track operators how to do it. We all contribute to the guest experience, no question, but the one who drove the project, who embraced the idea, who became the voice of our guests and advocated for their needs, who won them over when we fell short or disappointed them one at a time, and elevated Norwalk Dragway, was Debbie Bader. The woman behind the man who actually stood in front, not behind, as the tip of the service spear. Deb Bader is an incredibly passionate and hardworking woman who managed hundreds of event staff, scheduled everything from portable bathrooms to gate opening to producing our annual season brochure as only Deb Bader can do it. Nearly everything outside of the guard walls was Debbie's responsibility. She excelled at it all, but what made her great was her ability to engage our guests at an incredibly high level, listen to their needs, and deliver on the promises that the Baders made. We all learned from Deb, me included, how to be better, to understand the needs of our guests, to set aside our hurt feelings, peel back the onion in order for our guests to be heard and deliver unparalleled guest service in the motorsports space. The Baders win. We win, not because we had the most money or the nicest facility, but because we care so deeply for our guests and what they experience when they're in our house. What my father believed and what Debbie Bader brought to life remains hidden in plain sight to this day. And let me be very clear. There is nothing business about Summit Motorsports Park. There's nothing business about what we do. It's a passion. It's a desire to entertain, a genuine care, to listen, to inspire, and to be better every day. The Baders are better, our industry is better, and we are better because Debbie Bader believed we could be. It is my privilege and honor to introduce this year's Pat Garlits Memorial Award winner, Debbie Bader.
Well, I will tell you, I like it way better when I'm focused on you instead of you being focused on me. Don, having known you and Pat and understanding the relationship the two of you enjoyed makes this award all the more meaningful. It's an incredible honor. Thank you. Ted, I want to thank you for the friend you've been to all of our family since we met you in the 70s. Your friendship is priceless. My family members that are here tonight, Bill Jr., his wife Jamie, our daughter Bobby, my niece Barb, my sister Danny, Bill's brother Joe, and his wife Patty, love you beyond words. And all those people in Ohio and Idaho who've been cherished friends for more years than I can even count, thank you. I met Bill when I was 20. Think back to when you were 20. He was 33. He had already done it all. I had done nothing. He was my mother's boss. Go out with your mother's boss for your first date. It is incredibly interesting. I was in college studying nursing. We went to a family reunion, and Bill walks up with me and 3 little kids, and his uncles said, "Bill, where's Dottie?" And he said, "We're divorced." And then they said, "Well, who's that?" And he said, "This is Debbie." And one of them looked at me and said, "Where do you work, honey?" And Bill said, "Oh, she doesn't. She's in school." Yeah. I did graduate. I became a nurse. I worked in ICU and CCU for about 4 years. And I saw that hospital nursing just wasn't the right fit for me. So by then I was already working part-time at the racetrack. Bill's secretary was leaving, and I thought, well, I'm not happy at nursing. This is a perfect time for a big career change. So I set up an interview through his secretary and said, "Don't tell him I'm coming in." She said, "How do I do that?" I said, "You're leaving. What do you care? Lie." So the encounter went a lot like this. "Hi, honey. What are you doing here?" "I'm your 4 o'clock interview." "Your what?" "I'm your scheduled interview." Let me get this right. You can't type. You can't answer a multi-line phone. You know nothing about payables, receivables, or accounting. You've never done payroll, and you know nothing about computers. Why would I hire you? You're useless. I said, "Because I can be trained, and I've proven it." And I knew whoever spoke next lost. It was Bill. He said, "Listen, the only way this is going to work is," I thought, yes. As I look back on how little I knew, he was stupid to take me. But I will say, we charged forward together, and you know what? The experiment worked. So one afternoon, I was getting ready to open the gates, and a racer came up to me, and he said, "Hey, Deb, could I get in early?" And there were no other cars there, and I said, "You know what? Sure, come on in." So a little later that night, I encountered him again, and I saw that he had what I thought was an ace bandage on his knee. And I went over and I inquired about it, and he said, "Oh, Debbie, this isn't an ace bandage." He said, "A drunk driver went left of center this winter when we were off, and he said he hit me head on. They had to amputate my leg." He said, "I've had 2 surgeries so far," and he said, "My grandson and I were working on a junior dragster. It was our winter project." And he said, "I didn't want him to miss out on his time trials because I can't move very fast." He said, "I'm still going to have 2 or 3 more surgeries before I can, before the prosthesis actually fits properly." So he said, "That's why I wanted to come in early, so my grandson wouldn't miss out on his time trials." That encounter changed my life. It really opened my eyes. I saw that we don't know which guest is going through a divorce, who's lost a loved one, had an ugly day at work, has a child who is seriously sick, or any number of things that you encounter before you ever reach our park. In an instant, I saw what a difference we could make in the experiences of our guests through the way we treat you, if we treat you like family rather than treating you like a ticket sale. I saw that we could lift you out of your negative reality and take you from zero to magic just by coming in our gate. I also realized that to the racing world, our racetrack is really our living room. When you come to our park, you come to our home. That having been said, I want to introduce you to our Bill Bader Sr. Bill was demanding, difficult, picky, short-tempered, a workaholic whose hobby was work. Bill was the eagle who could spot a fuzz on a carpet from 5,000 feet. He was also joyful, adventurous, gregarious, compassionate, and tender-hearted, and he never held a grudge. And he could be all those things in 15 seconds. Customer service was one of Bill's innate gifts. Through intent, the rest of us learned it. I trained our team members to treat you as a welcome guest in our home. Along the way you shared with us, you explained your thinking in your various situations. We often hear about the outstanding customer service at Summit Motorsports Park, and yes, I encouraged our team to hear you. But you need to know that every single time you enter our living room and you make the effort to help us understand whatever your issue is, you improve our customer service even further. Customer service is not one-sided, and you need to know that. I really didn't want to be here without Bill. I adored him. And somehow I really don't think it's quite right that I get an award for loving somebody and just wanting to be part of what he was doing, because I won. I could work closely with him because I loved him, but I also respected him, and we worked because we were both driven to learn it all, both of us. How do you know you're with the right person? How do you know you're with the right partner? I found out that Bill was the right partner for me because I discovered I genuinely wanted him to be happy, even if it meant not being with me. That's how I knew. It's been 2.5 years since Bill's accident. As I stood on our Idaho mountain waiting for first responders and neighbors to bring Bill out, even knowing he had already passed away, my prayers were not about grief. They were prayers of thanksgiving for our precious family, who I adore, for all our years of work and play, for all our adventures and lessons, for the gift of all the friends that comprised our 43 years together. But you know what? My biggest gift was our faith. I didn't have to wonder if Bill was going to be okay. I knew he was eternally happy because he was face to face with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you, from the moment I found out, I was genuinely happy for him, even though it meant at the moment he was not going to be with me. My prayer for all of you is this: that you truly know Jesus Christ, you know your spouse, each family member, and all those people in your world who so enrich your experience. Tell all those significant people in your life what they mean to you. Truly, you never know when over is. But if you ensure all the above, when you stare over in the face, you can do so without fear, without regret, and without looking back, except with thanksgiving. That is a life well lived, and I'm telling you, it's the best ride there is. God bless you all and those you love.
Still to come on the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony, he spent over 40 years in drag racing as an innovator and a two-time U.S. Nationals winner, once in Funny Car, once in Top Fuel. Jim Head goes into the hall. But coming up next, he's NHRA National Dragsters Editor-in-Chief. Phil Burgess becomes a Hall of Famer. Thank you to all the sponsors who make it possible for the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony to take place, including Joe Amato Properties since 2002, Denswood Sports Marketing, and National Arts Depot since 2004. Thank you, NPD.
Thieves break into over 1 million vehicles in the United States every year, so protect your valuables with Boosted Safe. Boosted Safe locks and disguises your valuables in plain sight and opens in just seconds. Protect and secure full-size laptops, camera gear, personal protection tools, and more. Boosted Safe looks just like a child's booster seat, it clips into your car just like a booster seat, and it can only be removed by you. Latch, dash, and stash with Boosted Safe. BoostedSafe.com.
Welcome back to the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I want to remind everybody that t-shirts are available at the conclusion of the event in the Hawthorne Room. That's where you also pick up your glasses as well. The Hawthorne Room is right next door. Before we get to our next inductee, let's take a moment to speak with this guy, the current reigning Mission Foods Funny Car World Champion and the only 341-mile-per-hour funny car in NHRA competition, Austin Prock. Austin, having a good time tonight?
Having a great time. I've been coming here since, I think, 2018, and always a good time to see a lot of faces you don't get to see all the time, catch up on, what's going on and what happened in the past, and always great stories.
Now, we're going to see you on stage a little bit later, but these man on the street interviews, they haven't always been that smooth.
No, they haven't. It's been a great night so far, but it's definitely not as entertaining as me and Force a few years back.
There you go. He is your reigning world champion. We're going to see him on the stage very soon. But right now, here's Big Daddy.
Journalism. It's an important part of any sport, and especially drag racing, because we needed all the publicity we could get. And here's a good example of journalism and what it meant to the racers. This is Art Malone's complete collection of articles from Drag News, National Dragster magazines of his career from beginning to end. I mean, this was in his living room. I got this from his estate when he passed away. What a wonderful collection. And that brings us to Phil Burgess. He was the editor of National Dragster for 40 years, and he's still the editor. He also was the person who formed the first website in auto racing, the website for NHRA. Phil Burgess is one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. Anytime I need some information, I call him, he returns my call, and he's got the information. Please welcome Phil Burgess into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Jack Beckman will be making the presentation.
Looks familiar. So at 4:30, we showed up for a run of show, and Bader looks at me. I'd come right from the track, shirt and race pants. He says, "You're not really going to wear that." I'm like, "Bill, I got this covered, dude. I've got a tux." So I went back to the hotel, and Christine had picked it up from the dry cleaners a few weeks ago, packed it, shipped it, unpacked it, getting dressed. I'm like, oh my God. Somebody's clearly stole my tie. Lone said, "I got you covered. I got another tie." Thank you, Brian, and I don't know how to tie a tie. And I thought nobody will ever notice I don't have a tie. I should have known Bader would have picked that apart in a second. I should have known. And you know what I told you, Bill? I'm going to talk after you, and paybacks are you know what. I'd be remiss if I didn't go down the list here and congratulate each of the winners tonight, inductees. Charlie Allen, Jay Howell, Debbie. That was a wonderful speech, Debbie. Jim Head, Gary Dyer, Terry Vance, Byron Hines, Paul Scelzi, Gary Scelzi. You guys are all head and shoulders above in your field. You deserve to be here, and you're making this a wonderful night. Thank you and congratulations. Phil Burgess is an artist. Kenny Youngblood's an artist. He does it with a paintbrush. Steve Reyes is an artist. He does it with a camera. Garlits is an artist. He could do it with a welder. He could do it with a wrench. He could do it with a steering wheel. Phil Burgess is an artist. He does it with a typewriter and a keyboard. And he's one of those people, and the photographers are in that same group, that have kept the history of our sport. They have documented the things that have taken place there. If there weren't people like that, as a young kid that was so hooked on this sport, I just had to dive in and get all the magazines and read about who did what. You folks are the people that told us and showed us who did what. Who goes, Phil, are we at 42 years and counting at NHRA? 42 years, going on 40 as the editor. If you look at the list of editors of National Dragster, it is literally a who's who, and you could make a Hall of Fame there. And you look at the tenure, and nobody comes close. The next three don't add up to the tenure of Phil Burgess. Another great friend of mine, Kevin McKenna. Kevin, we're at 35 years at National Dragster. 35 years. Phil, you know you're doing something right when a guy's worked with you for 35 years and still likes you. And has that great of things to say about you. And maybe the most important, respects you that much. Phil has driven a car. Phil's got a competition driver's license. Pretty sure it's expired right now, but I think I can get you a discount on a renewal deal there. So he actually went out and he documented it. But there's so many people that have a thirst for knowledge and so few people that have the ability to transmit that in an adequate way. I believe it was last week, we went to a celebration of life for a great friend and a great person and a standout in the sport, Neil Britt, and himself a former editor at National Dragster. And as Neil said, Phil Burgess is God's gift to drag racing. And you're that, man. The history that you have covered, and maybe more important, the time machine that you've taken all of us through. It's one thing to go to a race and document it and write about it. It's another thing to go back and connect the dots. And I would venture to say that everybody that's in this room that's been inducted into the Hall of Fame has had some sort of interrelationship with Phil. He's called you, he's asked you questions, he's written about you, he's communicated to the masses the contributions that you guys have made to the sport. Another friend of ours, Brett Kepner, himself an inductee into here. He and I were talking several months ago, and he was a huge advocate for having Phil inducted into this group of people. And Brett said something to me that sounded real simple until you thought about it, and then it sounded incredibly profound. He said, nobody in the world has written more words on our sport than Phil Burgess. And I let that set with me for a few minutes. I'm like, I think you're right. And that's unbelievable. That's the kind of stuff that gets you into the Hall of Fame. But Phil's not getting in here because he's done it for 40 years. He's getting in here because he's done it with excellence every time. Kevin tells me that to this date, Phil still reads every single word that goes in a National Dragster. And that's a pride of ownership. And if you guys, has anybody here ever met Wally Parks? Anybody here ever struggled with Wally Parks? Besides Dawn, of course. Wally's deal was, it's my ship, and I'm the captain. And Phil came in at a time where it was still very much Wally's ship and Wally's the captain, and managed to walk that line between writing the things that he felt was important to the readers and following Wally's edict of excellence out there. And that's a very, very tough balance. And to be able to do that the way that you've done that, and Phil, if you want to start heading up here, and the table that Phil is leaving right now, Phil's mom came out here. And I asked her earlier, I said, did you ever tell him growing up you're never going to amount to anything if you keep reading those damn drag race periodicals? And I think all she wants to do is meet John Force tomorrow. So I said, you know, I think if Phil carries his trophy over to our pits, that'll probably get you in there. But it's fantastic that Phil has got 4 generations of his family here to see him come up on stage and become the next inductee into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame, Phil Burgess.
I tell people that winning a drag race is not the hardest thing in NHRA, it's following that guy to the stage. And he's been up here twice for you. But thank you, Jack. Thank you for the kind words. Obviously want to thank Don Garlits and the nominating committee. A tremendous honor. Hard to believe. I want to congratulate all of my fellow inductees. I've written about many of you. Jim Hett let me warm up his funny car one time. The Baders let me drive a race car at Norwalk back in the day. So many of you that I know, and so many in this room that I've had friendships with, from the great Garlits all the way to Austin Prock. So it's an honor to be up here. My whole life's been drag racing. I remember being a kid, playing with my Hot Wheels on the living room floor, had my own national events going on. And, if you had Hot Wheels back in the day, you had the Snake and the Mongoose funny car, and they were my favorites, hands down. So I remember asking my parents to take me to a drag race. I want to see these cars in person, see what they're really like. And they did. It was summer of '71 at Orange County, long before Charlie was there, long before Donor was there. My mom is with us here tonight, as Jack said, with my sister. Look what you started, Mom. So thank you. But from that day, it's seeing your first drag race. I think many of you probably remember. It's just amazing. You cannot believe that something like this exists. And from that day, I was 8 up. I was possessed with drag racing, obsessed to the T. For the next 10, 12 years, I bought every drag racing magazine I could get my hands on, memorized them cover to cover. And it's probably around 15 or 16 when I realized that the stories that I was reading and the photos I was seeing, that was somebody's job to do that. Some lucky suckers were getting paid to go to the races, hang out with my heroes, have a front row seat to drag racing history. And Steve Ray is certainly among them that inspired me. Never thought that I would join that group, right? At the time I was 15 years old, and the closest I was delivering the news was from the handlebars of my bike, right? Throwing newspapers onto people's roofs and into their bushes instead of onto their porches. Was not very good at that job. About that same time, I met my lifelong best friend, Van Toon. Two peas from the same pod. We both loved cars and both wanted to be automotive journalists. He loved Detroit production cars. I love drag racing, of course. He went on to become the most successful editor in the history of Motor Trend magazine, which is really saying something. And of course, I've been here at National Drag Series, so we both got to live our dreams. It's really amazing. I remember meeting Wally for the first time when I went to interview for the job. It was 1982. I wasn't even 22 yet, at the office in North Hollywood. And I went in there, and the staff, they interviewed me. They wanted to know about my drag racing knowledge. And of course, that's a test I've been studying for 10 years through all these magazines. That was easy. Meeting Wally face to face, man, that was really something else. As Jack said, Wally could be tough, but he sat down and said, "Why should I hire you?" I didn't have a great answer, so I just said, "If you hire me, I will work endlessly and tirelessly to promote NHRA and drag racing and everything about it." And I don't think either of us knew endlessly would mean 42 years and counting, but here I still am. I've been there more than 1,700 issues that I've been part of shipping out. I'm very proud of. The magazine's changed. Many of you read the National Drag Series. It was newsprint, black and white photography. Today it's beautiful, full color magazine. We're so proud of it. Wally, as Jack said, was kind of tough. I bet Don Garlits and I can go back and forth with war stories about Wally. I've got a whole drawer full of memos that I think I could beat Don. The first memo that I ever got from Wally was when I was promoted to editor in 1986. Neil Britt was the boss at the time. And the memo began, and I'm not making this up, "Congratulations, I think." Not a great way to start a relationship. Wally had founded National Drags in 1960, the same year that I was born. And I'm not sure he took kindly to this 25-year-old punk who'd only been there a couple of years, taking over the reins of his baby. But in the 25 years between then and when we lost him, I think I won him over, so I'm very proud of that. Wally's just one of the great people we've had there, and Neil Britt, who Jack also mentioned, and John Raffer were my early mentors, molded me into the editor and the writer that I became. We lost Neil last year, just like we lost Van, and 2024 really sucked for that reason. All the way up to today, I got great leaders today. Glenn Cromwell, Brad Gerber, and David Kennedy support me every step of the way. Every issue, just turn out a quality magazine and still do the things that I promised Wally that I would do back in those days. So that's very important to me. My name's at the top of the masthead. I get a lot of credit, but certainly don't do this alone, never done. It's a huge team effort. Certainly one of those people is my good friend, Kevin McKenna. Sorry, Kev. Been with, he's been with me almost from the very beginning, just a great co-worker, hard worker, knowledgeable guy. Couldn't do this without you, Kev. The Mortons, Jeff and Robin are also with us here tonight. Like me, they came to NHRA when they were in their early 20s, and they're still there. We grew up together, just part of the incredible family that I've been blessed to have at NHRA over the years. My writers, you've seen their bylines over the years. Talented people like Todd Venny, Brad Littlefield, Melvin Record, Kenita Benson, Kelly Wade, so many people. Amazing photographers like the great Leslie Lovett and Teresa Long and Jerry Foss, Mark Wirtz, and they'll put their stamp on National Dragster, and I'm very proud of them for everything that they contributed, and very proud of the magazine. The other thing that I'm proud about at NHRA, in 2007 I launched a column on NHRA.com called Dragster Insider. I wanted to go back and look at all the stories I'd read in the magazines back in the 70s, take a deeper dive, and get to know some of the guys whose careers had ended, long before I came there. Developed some wonderful friendships with these guys. They were all so great, so welcoming. Allowed me to share their stories. Also told me some stories that I was not allowed to share. Looking at you, Richard Tharp, wherever you are in the world tonight. But I've gotten so many texts and emails from some of them that just means the world to me, because it crossed generations. I was a generation after them, and they still respect what we do today. The other thing that the Dragster Insider does that I take great pride in is when we lose somebody, and we've lost a lot of people over the last 20 years. I always try to write a last tribute article about them. And I don't do it for them, but I do it for their families, to let them know what their loved one meant to us, what their place was in our sport, and that we won't forget them. Very important to me. Here's where I'm going to get mushy. You heard me mention family a couple of times. I've got a great one. They're all here. This job's hard. A lot of travel, a lot of time. I'm sure there's a lot of road warriors in here like us. You spend a lot of time away from home. For me, the hard part about travel was never lost luggage or delayed flights or anything like that. It's having to leave these people at home. Said I wasn't going to cry. Damn it. Damn you guys. But no, they knew how hard this job was going to be. They knew how much time it would take to do the job the way it deserved to be done. Starting with excuse me, my wife Marie had to be the mom and the dad. Everything. The rules maker, the enforcer. It was easy in the mirror, guys, believe me. The rules maker, the enforcer, everything. And just amazing. Thank you, sweetheart. My kids, Amanda, Kim, and Chris, grandkids, Dylan and Trevor, and Jaden and Maddie. I wasn't there for all the baseball games, all the birthday parties, but they loved me. Kim is with us here tonight, my daughter, her husband Jay, and where are you, Maddie? My granddaughter, Maddie. Thank you. In conclusion, incredible life, incredible family, incredible job. This is obviously the pinnacle of that career. I'm proud to still be at NHRA, still doing the things that I promised Wally I would do back in 1982. So thank you again to the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Thank you to anyone who ever read anything I ever wrote, and thank you all for being here.
Well done, brother.
As we look out the windshield here at the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony, soon to come, funny car pioneer and supercharger innovator and entrepreneur Dyer will have his moment in the Hall of Fame. But coming up next, a two-time U.S. Nationals winner who is still winning Wallies today, Jim Head, enters the Hall of Fame. Thank you, Masters Entertainment Group, for supporting the International Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and Pat and Jerry Baltus for your longtime commitment to the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. And Capco Contractors Incorporated. Thank you, Capco.
The International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony is a who's who, and we're halfway home. We've got all kinds of celebrities in the house. I want to remind everybody, we're going on Flow Sports live streaming right now. Everybody on Flow, thank you so much for checking us out. One of the biggest drag races in the world this weekend, the Amalie Motor Oil NHRA Gator Nationals. Also, everybody out there on Competition Plus, but if you're not watching live now, you can watch it at a date to be determined on CBS Sports. So be sure to set your DVRs or watch online. We got some celebrities in the house. I want to shout out to the reigning and current Pro Stock Motorcycle World Champion, Gage Herrera, who was just there and ran when I said we were going to put him on the air. That's Gage. He was right there. His dad got away for us, Dad. Also, Jimmy Prock, Funny Car World Champion Crew Chief in the house. What's up, Jimmy? Hanging out. And NHRA on Fox broadcaster Brian Loans in the house. Brian, thank you so much for coming out, hanging out with us here at the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. You'll see some of them a little bit later. But right now, back to Big Daddy Don Garlits for our next inductee. Well, so this is kind of appropriate, because this guy coming to the stage is going to be inducting his father, a father and son duo who have worked and raced in drag racing for many years. And how many people win the U.S. Nationals, let alone win the U.S. Nationals in 2 categories? Is that his greatest accomplishment? Maybe not. Being involved in the sport of drag racing for over 40 years, having a son who has gone on to be successful in IndyCar as a general manager, successful in drag racing, driven a funny car. It is unbelievable. We talk about how this sport is a family sport, a sport of fathers and sons, fathers and daughters. The family that races together stays together, and that is absolutely true for Jim Head, our next inductee into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. And here to induct his father, Mr. Chad Head. Chad, come on up. Where's the video, he asks?
Okay.
That's a good question.
What happened?
We don't know.
You screwed up.
I didn't.
Yes, you did.
Well, I don't, where's I'm supposed to pull it? Oh, wait, here's the video.
Thank you, Joe. Congratulations to all of the inductees. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be up here. Thank you, Don Garlits, and your staff and everybody for keeping this thing going. Don, I've not had a lot of time to hang out with you much, but you're pretty cool, and it's good to have this thing continue to go. If there was a theme song for Head Racing or Jim Head or the Head family, it would be I Did It My Way, for sure. You know, he does what he wants when he wants it, and he's very successful. You know, we like to golf, we like to fish. You know, there were no country clubs growing up. It was just drag strips. Dad's Jim's father, my grandfather, was a great golfer, so he did the country club thing. But we just went to drag strips. That's what we did, and it was really cool. So very competitive. I don't think you'll meet another competitive guy out there. We could be golfing together and haven't done it in a long time, but we'll be doing that again sometime soon. But we'll be golfing, and people will say, "Are you guys brothers?" I said, "No, we're not brothers, but we're fighting for every inch, every putt, every nickel that we bet with each other or whatnot." So it's pretty competitive. It's always been that way. Back in '96, I think it was, Dad and Alan got hooked up together, and they're testing on Monday. They're going to figure stuff out, get things going, and we went to the Mexican restaurant right there in Commerce. I think everybody's been there before. And a few margaritas. We get back to Commerce, and the gate's locked. Yeah, it's no problem. between my dad and I think Blaine, Al, and myself, it's everybody put 20 bucks on the ground. Let's see who can get over the fence first. And there were some bloody knuckles, some bloody arms, but it was either between Dad or Blaine who got over the fence first. But it was, it's like, again, very, very competitive family, competitive nature. So, as Joe said, I did get to drive for a few years. Pretty fortunate that Dad picked me to drive the car after he decided to quit driving. So it's a pretty big honor. Did okay, hit a few cones, but I don't think I tore up any race cars. Got to drive the nostalgia funny car for a short time that looked like the head racing car that he did back in 1984. So it's pretty cool. So as Joe said, top fuel and funny car winner. Yeah, not a lot of people get to do that, so it's pretty neat. So innovation, he's done a lot of things. He's put headers upside down on top fuel cars. Didn't work out good. He had ground effects back in the day that would make Ned Walliser's head spin right now. I mean, he would know what to think. He did wind tunnels at OSU, Ohio State University. And this was all, because of his passion. He didn't have anybody paying for it. It was coming out of his own pocket. So he really loves drag racing for sure. Direct drive, onboard computers, a lot of stuff. Carbon clutches. Again, Ned and the whole tech team, they wouldn't know what to think about that today. I wish he would go back to doing that stuff because he's got a really good running car right now. So I wish he would go back to innovating stuff and kind of slow back down, but he's not. He's doing really, really good. Pretty proud of him. So, and again, you watch the car on the starting line leave, and sometimes you don't know whether he has the best 60 foot or whether the car has the best 60 foot because he's running after that car just about every time. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to watch. So. When your dad calls up and says, "Hey, I want to get a new driver. What do you think?" And that's pretty cool for your dad to, he's been doing it for, I don't know, been burning nitro since 1980, but he's been racing forever, right? So who am I to tell him what to do? But that was pretty cool to get that phone call just to get my opinion on who the next driver should be for his car. So talked about it and. He picked I think a great guy, Spencer Hyde, and his family, and I think it's a great fit, and I can't wait to see it. But again, I'm hoping he keeps trying to innovate stuff so he can slow down. So, most guys, get inducted after they're retired, after they're done racing, after they're, whatever, right? Some have sadly passed away, but I'm pretty sure that the best years are still ahead of him. He's really doing good. Last couple of years have been pretty cool to watch. So, but again, on behalf of myself, Tammy, Sammy, Michelle, all the countless crew guys that have worked for my father, and I think it's really cool to be able to introduce him into the Drag Racing Hall of Fame, and just want to give him a round of applause. So. I think most importantly that we're all really proud of what he's done, and most importantly is that we love him. And here comes Dad.
As you're about to find out, I'm not any good at this.
I did forget one thing. I'm sorry. I had a longer speech, but according to Aaron Brooks and Bobby Lagana, Dad has agreed to do a roast when he turns 80. Now, that's not for a long time, but he has agreed to it. So.
In racing, there's a lot of people that really enjoy talking in front of a lot of people. And some of them are pretty good. Some of them were up tonight. I'm about to prove to you that I'm not one of those people that is any good at it or enjoys it. But here I am. I'd like to think, I'm not really sure how I got up here, but whoever put me up here, I thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's quite an honor. I'd also like to thank my wife of 39 years, Tammy, my son Chad, and my daughter Suzanne. They're all with me here tonight. And they've put up with quite a bit. I'm a difficult person. And all my friends are aware of it. My few friends, not a lot of them actually. But I have to say, I really love drag racing. And I've been asked many times why, and it's simply because there's no other way to prove who's the better mechanic or who's the better team of mechanics. And it's real easy. You just line them up and send them. And the one that gets to the other end first, that particular time, that's the best mechanic. I'm very competitive. I've been doing this now for 60 years with actually very little success. But I still loved every minute of it because I like to compete. I figured out a long time ago that I wasn't any good at getting people to give me money to race my car. And fortunately, God's blessed me with the ability to make a lot of money in the construction business. Head Incorporated, which is my airfield paving company, has done really well. And actually in the last 10, 15 years has done well enough that I can almost afford to do this now. I started out, I was a one-man racing team. I was 15 years old, and my father had never been to a drag race. No uncles, no cousins. I didn't even have any friends that were really into drag racing. I built my first degas car in the barn at 15 years old, and when I turned 16, we pulled it to Pacemaker Drag Strip in Mount Vernon, Ohio. Pulled it up there with a chain. And since that degas car, there's been Altereds and Roadsters and Econorails. But over the years, I built the cars myself. I built the engines, built the trailers that I pulled them on. Most of them were pretty rough, no question about it. But after a short stint, about 4 months in alcohol dragster, I made the fateful mistake of putting nitromethane in the tank. And I can assure you that nobody races nitro by themselves. Nitro racing requires a team, a real team. And over the years, I've been blessed with people that have helped me race for the last 45 years in nitromethane now. John Davis, who is here tonight, he worked for me for 40 years. He works harder than any two men I've ever known in my life. Dave Leahy, one of the smartest guys in the pits, has and still works for me for 34 years. His number one guy at Electromotion back in Ohio was Chris Miller, who's worked for me for 24 years. My cylinder head wizard, Len Kelly, has been with me for 14 years. Fortunately, we now, Head Racing has 5 new, young, strong guys to help the old men do the heavy lifting, which there's plenty of that in nitromethane racing. I'm really pleased to welcome Spencer Hyde to the team. Spencer and his family are partners now with Head Racing, and I would like to welcome Hyde Construction to the slippery slope of nitromethane racing. For the first 25 years, my nitro career, the race car rarely went to the next race the same as it had been the race before. I constantly changed the car, and I really did enjoy that innovation part. I always had a better idea. Most of them didn't work. Some of them did, but my team's proud of those innovations. Fortunately, probably for me, about 20 years ago, NHRA decided that we really wanted to write some rules, because when I first started, we didn't have any rules. Just whoever could get there the other end first. We've got a lot of rules now, and that's probably the best thing. We actually all our race cars are very, very similar. And so now that the team that wins usually has the best tuned car as opposed to different. Owners, drivers, crew chiefs get most of the credit. At least that's what most of the people talk about in all forms of sport. But without teams, we don't have anything. We can't possibly get up and down the road without a group of men and women to get it accomplished. In 2021, one of the finest young men I've ever had the privilege of knowing lost his life in a road accident hauling one of my rigs to the Las Vegas race. Dylan Cromwell would have become one of the finest people in drag racing that the sport has ever known. We should all appreciate the sacrifices that the crews go through to literally make this sport happen, and they don't get nearly enough credit, for sure. And I've just thanked God for having met Dylan Cromwell and his family. They're truly some of the finest people that I've ever known, and it pretty much inspired me to keep on going. I've got 1,000 stories, and I'm not going to tell you anymore because I don't like talking like this. But I must say, I love drag racers. I love drag racing, and I intend to drag race till the day I die. Thank you.
We're not far off from the wild thing himself, Gary Scelzi, entering the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. And a pair of two-wheel legends, Terry Vance and Byron Hines, enter the hall. But next up, Gary Dyer will have his moment at the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. We'd like to take a moment to thank the people who make it possible, including NHRA National Dragster, Donovan, and TAC Enterprises since 2022. Thank you for your support of the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame.
In the high-performance world, saving weight is critical. You can save more than 40 pounds of unsprung weight with wheels from Lightspeed Racing. Lightspeed Racing makes the world's best lightweight performance wheels and accessories, including forged magnesium wheels, lighter than carbon fiber, better tensile and fatigue strength than forged aluminum. Lightspeed Racing, nearly endless colors and finishes, and 100% custom made. Choose record-setting, race-proven, custom wheels from lightspeedracing.com.
Masters Entertainment Group, producing Motorhead Garage and other network series for nearly 30 years. We specialize in post-production, live event coverage, and streaming for any size event. Let us produce your on-air or online content. Go to masterstv.com.
Welcome back to the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Earlier this evening, we had an amazing live auction for a couple of highly collectible toolboxes, a cooler, and a wonderful work of art. thousands of dollars was raised for the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame, which operates on your donations. If you are at home and you would like to help out the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame, please go to the website or the Facebook page so you may contribute. We've got a lot more to come, including the wild thing Gary Scelzi just ahead, but right now it's time for our next inductee. Let's hear from Big Daddy Don Garlits.
They're always asking, why do they call them funny cars? Well, they call them funny cars because back in the 60s, they took the factory Superstock sedan and moved the rear wheels right up to the door. And it really looked funny. And people said, that's a funny looking car. And that's where the name stuck. Then the next innovation was the full plastic car, and Bruce Larson built the very first one of them, which we have right here in this building. And then the next most famous car was Jungle Jim. And this is the era of the 1960s that Gary Dyer, our next inductee, was in. He participated in all of this innovation, and then he drove the famous Mr. Norm's funny car for many years. And that Norm's funny car and Jungle Jim was one of the premier drag races of all time. After many years of driving the funny cars, Gary retired and started building superchargers for the general public, which he still does to this day. Welcome Gary Dyer into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Gary's daughter, Kim O'Connell, will make the presentation.
I can tell you we're definitely going to make some time up here. First, I just want to thank Don Garlits and the Hall of Fame committee, because without you guys, this would not be possible. Also want to say something to Chuck. Thank you for putting this amazing event together. It really turned out great. It means a lot. I also want to thank my family and friends who came out to support my dad. I know many of you have come thousands of miles, and we really appreciate it. To the family and friends of Jay Howell, please know that our thoughts are with you. He was a great man, and he's really going to be missed. So, as a little girl, this is what I remember. I was very young, and I remember seeing funny-looking cars with wheels in the wrong places. It was very confusing. Sometimes they had scary animals on them, big letters on the side. It just didn't make sense. But they were really loud. There were always guys facing the hood. Things were always crazy in our garage. And being a little girl, I just didn't really understand it. But as I grew up, what I recall what really happened was my dad started racing at the age of 18. And he was your typical gearhead. He grew up in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. And his basic drag racing career started with a Oldsmobile-powered 1933 Ford Coupe. Over the next 10 years, he raced a series of Chevys and gas coupes. In late '63, he got his big opportunity when he started racing a Mercury Comet called the Marauders, and that was sponsored by the Chicagoland Lincoln Mercury Dealers Association. They took that car out in '64 and actually set a world record in Superstock with a 1075 over 130 miles an hour at Oswego Drag Strip. For the next 10 years, he partnered with Norm Kraus, who was also known as Mr. Norm. Norm was the co-owner of Grand Spalding Dodge out of Chicago. And although my dad built, tuned, drove, and owned most of the cars, he often remained in the background because Norm was basically the face and the voice of the operation. He lit the fires and he made things happen. While my dad was instrumental in making funny cars an integral part of drag racing, he wanted to race in the big events, but he still needed to pay his bills to support his family. So he spent most of his career match racing for guaranteed money against the likes of Arnie Beswick, Pat Minnick, Ram Chargers, Tom McEwen, and so many more. Over the years, he did post hundreds of wins. In 1969, with a new Dodge Charger body seated on a Logie Stamping Company chassis, he completed in the Coca-Cola Cavalcade of Stars, where he won that championship. While always building his own blowers, in 1969, Gary created Dyer's Blower Service. He began building superchargers for other racers, which eventually exploded into the street market. In 1970, he semi-retired from drag racing to focus on the business, partnering with his friend Kenny Safford, but he couldn't stay away. So he resumed his racing career in 1921 at the wheel of a new Mr. Norm-sponsored Dodge Challenger funny car. He went on to win numerous races. In 1972, overwhelmed with blower orders, Gary turned the driving duties over to Kenny Safford and eventually sold the entire operation to him in '73. Over 60 years later, at 90 years old, my dad still goes into the shop 7 days a week to build blowers. We've come to realize that this is his purpose. Before I continue, my dad's friend Paul Stenquist would like to say a few words.
1965 was a historic year for drag racing, and it really was the birth of drag racing's second pro class, funny cars. It started really when Chrysler butchered 11 cars, cutting out big sections of the unibody, dipping the rest of it in acid so they were so thin you could almost push your hand through it, and they moved the front wheels forward and the rear wheels forward even further, so they almost turned them into mid-engine cars. They took them out to the Winter Nationals, I believe it was, and then NHRA said, you're not going to race those in super stock. But they said, we'll make a new class for you. We'll call them factory experimental. And you could race each other. So they did, and the fans loved it, and the track owners loved it, and they started booking them. Meanwhile, Norm Krause had sponsored a super stock. Pat Minnick and John Firkonis ran it. That ended badly, and Gary Dyer was best friends with Minnick and Firkonis. They had all gone to high school together at the only school named after cornstarch, Argo High School. And Gary went to them and said, what if I go talk to Norm and see if I could do something? So he did, and he told Norm, he said, look, these guys are making money running those AFX cars. He says, we don't need a super stock. He says, let's build an exhibition racer. So Norm gave him a two-door post car. Gary moved the rear wheels forward and lightened it up as much as he could. It was not as light as the acid dip cars. It was about 300 pounds heavier, but he put a blown motor in it. And Gary had already had a lot of experience with blowers. He had run AA gas supercharged. He had had a supercharged Corvette, so he knew how to make blowers work. And that car was fast. And he won match races all over, running gasoline in a blown car. And one day he had a match race with Beswick. One of his friends was there who ran a fuel altered, and he said, Gary, put some nitromethane in there. And he says, you know, just 20% or something, we'll change the nozzles. And they did, and all of a sudden, he went from running low 10s and high 9s to running low 9s. And then Roger Lindehood had one of the butchered cars from Chrysler. And it was, I think he kind of beat the hell out of it, so he was getting rid of it. He did those giant wheel stands, and I know Chrysler sent out a memo telling them not to do the wheel stands because they were tired of warrantying all the front end parts. And so Roger sold it, Gary bought it, took out the stock front end, put in a gasket type front end, reinforced it where it was falling apart, and went out and raced. And he was beating everybody in the Midwest. And Norm was buying ads in Drag News every week. And it was called Mr. Norm. It was Mr. Norm here, Mr. Norm races Jungle Jim. Gary was the driver, the mechanic, and the main owner in a lot of ways, but Mr. Norm was the picture and the voice of the car, and he did a good job of it. He bought those ads, he made a big deal out of it. He said, we can beat anyone. And then they ran 870 at Ubley, a little drag strip in Michigan, and everybody figured, for Ubley, they must have bogus clocks, it doesn't matter. But he beat the Ram Chargers running 870. So, you know, Gary knew it was real. Most of the people in the Midwest knew it was real, but the West Coasters got a big grin out of it, and they made fun of it, and they fought back and forth for a while. So Gary and Norm said, well, we got to go out there and race them. So in November, Gary towed the car over the mountains, and they went to Lyons on a Saturday night. And Jim Kelly was there and took this picture. This is against Don Gay. Don Gay left first by a mile. He red lighted. He ran 9:50 something. Gary left on time, ran 8:63, drove around him, and the people just loved it. It was called The Shot Heard Round the World. And at least it was the shot heard around the drag racing world, if not the entire world. But drag racers all knew it. And Frank Oglesby later told me, he said, in many ways, that run was probably the most significant in the beginning of funny cars, in the history of the sport, that really made it clear what a great show the stock-bodied cars could be, running with a blower and nitromethane. So we're going to give this to Gary, along with, I've got the box for it. So.
I want to thank Paul. Before I go on, I'd like to add how proud we are of my dad for his innovative, forward-thinking ways in teaching us kids that being humble is an important character, that things are not given to us and that we must earn our place in life, and he leads by example every day. Dad, congratulations on your International Drag Racing Hall of Fame award, and this is going to be part of your legacy forever. We love you.
Thank you, Kim. You know, on the way down here, I was thinking about a lot of the old racers we used to race with, fuel funny car guys, fuel dragster guys, and, you know, those guys are starting to get up in age. I'm 90, and I'm just a pup. Arnie Beswick, talked to him the other day, he's 94. The Golden Greek, Camerasinis, he's 93. And then we have Ed Eskandarian, 103. I asked Garlits how old he was. He told me 39. Back in the 60s, on race day, we'd drag a jug of nitro out of the truck, maybe put a little benzene in it, maybe a little propylene oxide, or how about some hydrazine? Now, hydrazine, that was some bad stuff. That would turn the cylinder walls green. So we had these guys breathing this stuff, running this stuff month after month, year after year, and they're still alive today. What is keeping these guys alive? It's gotta be the nitro. I thank everybody who put this all together. Congratulations to the other inductees, and a special thanks to my family and friends that have come down here for my special day. Thank you.
Coming up here at the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony, our Founders Award winner, Paul Scelzi, the founder of Summit Racing Equipment, and Gary Scelzi lie ahead. But next up, a dynamic two-wheel duo, Vance and Hines, enter the hall. Thank you to Summit Motorsports Park. Since 2016, from Norwalk, Ohio, the Bader family has supported drag racing for decades. Thank you, Summit Motorsports Park. And Hangstifer's Metalworking Lubricants. Since 2019, Hangstifer's has supported the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Thank you, Hangstafers.
The Roy Hill Drag Racing School is the original and most trusted school. If you don't have a race car yet, Roy Hill does.
If you don't have a race car, don't worry. I got plenty of them down here.
Roy furnishes insurance only at safe tracks.
The number one thing I teach here is safety.
You'll get step-by-step instruction in the classroom and on the track. Every student leaves Roy's school with a license.
I can get you an IHRA license or NHRA.
Go to RoyHillDragRacingSchool.com.
You want to learn how to drag race? Come to Roy Hill.
Whatever you drive, however you drive. AMSOIL specially engineers lubricants to maximize power, performance, and protection in your vehicles, so you can work hard and play hard with confidence. Order online at amsoil.com.
The Vance and Hines name is familiar to anybody that's associated with high-performance motorcycles. The team was formed in 1980, and for 40 years, they won national events and world championships. They're retired now, but they're still developing high-performance parts and manufacture them for high-performance motorcycles. Tonight, we welcome the Vance and Hines team into the Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Brian Lone will make the presentation.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's been a great night so far. I want to put a capper on the Jack Beckman tie story because he tied me into this thing. So earlier, he comes in here this afternoon dressed like he's a homeless person, and that immediately upsets Bill Bader, who has to ask him what he's going to wear. So he shoots back instantaneously, I got a tux. Oh, okay. Put us all in our place, and off he goes. So then I get the semi-frantic phone call from Jack. Do you have an extra tie? And my mom raised me right. I got extra underwear, ties. I got all kinds of stuff up there. We travel very well packed. But I said, you're wearing a tux, right? He said, yeah, but don't worry about it. Just bring the tie downstairs. I said, well, I'll send you a picture of the tie, but I don't know if this is going to work. Well, just bring it downstairs. So I'm leaving the room with this tie, which Stevie Wonder would understand does not go anywhere near a tuxedo. So then he looks at me when he gets down here. What do you think? He looks at Christina and said, this ain't gonna work. You're fine. Wear the tie. So that is the end of the Jack tie story. It's really been a brilliant night, and it's a spectacular honor to be in the room with people of this caliber. Phil Burgess, it's such a great honor to be here on your night tonight. You've been such a great influence on so many of us, myself included, in my career. And it's awesome. But for the Vance and Hines team, who graciously asked me to be up here tonight, it is my great honor to kind of induct them into this Hall of Fame. You'll hear from Terry Vance in a moment. These guys are in a place all of their own, and this world-class gathering of people they deserve so often and so well to be a part of. And it's a quandary to induct people into a Hall of Fame who are already in multiple Halls of Fame. Terry and Byron are both in the AMA Hall of Fame already. They're both in the Motorsport Hall of Fame of America already. So you kind of got to take a different angle on getting them into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame because, frankly, they've heard all this stuff before. They have lived lives that have been dedicated to motorsports and the business they're in, and by doing so have created for themselves a legacy that is unmatched, not only in drag racing, but in so many other forms of motorsports where motorcycles compete. They've had factory relationships with the likes of Ducati, Harley-Davidson, Yamaha, and of course Suzuki, which they continue today with great success in the world of NHRA. As a rider, Terry amassed 14 championships. And it's weird to say that pales in comparison to the scores that the team has garnered on dirt tracks, on drag strips, on road courses, on ovals. They've raced everywhere, and they've succeeded everywhere. Champions often write their own poetry in drag racing, and for Terry specifically, his poetry was in the 1988 season, which was his last as a competitive rider. The last 5 races he entered, won all 5, including the 1988 NHRA Finals, which was his swan song as a competitor on top of the motorcycle, literally going out on top in the pinnacle of the sport. I had to pick a direction for this thing tonight, and the direction I chose was not to talk about how many wins Terry and Byron have amassed, how many championships they've amassed, but it's to go into the idea of, and the meaning of, and the definition of what a partnership is. Because they have one of the most pure partnerships that have ever existed in the sport. Drag racing is unique in motorsports because it is almost wholly unique how many great partnerships have ensconced themselves into this Hall of Fame and into the history of drag racing. The Prock and Howell car out front's a perfect example. Warren and Coburn, Sox and Martin, Garlits and Malone, Vance and Hines. That's peak, that's pinnacle. That is the highest echelon you can achieve in this sport, or where those people were and where Terry and Byron find themselves tonight. They did it all themselves together, and they worked incredibly hard along the way. The partnerships, like the one that Terry Vance and Byron Hines put together, they're rooted in very different things. They're rooted in friendship, but they're really all at the base. They're rooted in love, and they're rooted in the love of competition, the love of the sport, the love of winning, and the brotherly love that is then put together over the course of decades because of achieving those things. Terry and Byron got together in 1972, out in California, a couple of young guys. They went into business together in 1980. And like all the people we've talked about tonight and all those previous partnerships I just mentioned, these were two people who would have been exceptional by themselves, both of them. But together, legendary. You had this quiet, cerebral, empirically brilliant mechanic, and engineer in Byron Hines. And in Terry, you had a business brain, a promotional brain, and one hell of a motorcycle rider to climb on the stuff that Byron could dream up. The two created a union that I can say really without being contradicted became not only the best motorcycle racing team of the last 50 years, we could be talking about the greatest motorcycle racing team, period. End of story. For a partnership to truly succeed, it has to be rooted in respect, shared levels of passion, and a vision forward for what you're trying to do and trying to achieve. It's not about agreeing on everything, and I have to imagine over the years there was some strife and some conflict, but in the end you guys would always look past to the next thing. You would see what the greater good was for the team, and you would move and advance yourselves, and by doing so advance the sport. The idea that they also would advance the organizations they competed in is very important to understand as well. These are two guys that, yes, every drag racer is out for him or herself when you're rolling the gate. You want to win. Damn everyone else, you want to leave with the trophy. But these are two guys who, wherever they've competed, have looked at the larger picture. And the organizations they've competed in and with, they have actually raised the bar of the entire organization with the way they have raced. I say this to move into my final phase before we bring Terry up here on the stage. Terry Vance and Byron Hines have literally won at everything they have ever done. But both of their hearts lie right here in the world of drag racing, where all of ours do. And that makes them very special. They have been a constant source of support to the sport of drag racing through their business acumen, through their engineering prowess, and certainly for finding people that are the next generation of talent. The two riders they have at their table right there. Richard Gadsden's over there, Gage Herrera's over there. The two grayish-looking guys that once were children on motorcycles. They found those guys, they pulled one of them out of Englishtown, New Jersey, of all places. It's the craziest, it's an amazing story. This is what they've always done. They've been forward-looking. Terry specifically has had a vast impact on many, many people's lives in the world of drag racing. His support and fostering of the NHRA launch platform has now placed hundreds of young people into motorsports jobs that otherwise likely wouldn't have found them. They have gone working at racetracks, they have gone working at our sanctioning body, they have gone working at teams, and that's because of Terry's vision. He and Byron were able to cultivate these factory relationships, which has helped raise the level of competition in pro stock motorcycle, which continues today. Their mutual want to see the sport elevated without abandoning its roots is pretty spectacular. They want to see the best for drag racing, but they want to make sure we never forget where we came from. Because they love where they came from. They remember it, and they've built off that passion, and they've built off that history and to become a global superpower in motorcycle racing. Terry's son, Jordan, is actually a colleague of mine now at the NHRA. He is engaged and he's energized. He has a never say quit attitude, and that comes from being raised by a dad who acted the same way. And for Byron Hines, his boys have taken his passion for racing with an ardor and fervor that has to make him incredibly proud as well. And there is simply no other greater tribute to a man than that. If you're able to take your passion and your example and pass it to somebody else and watch them take it and push it even further ahead, it's what champions do. It's what the people in this room have done. And they have done it as well. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome the two latest inductees into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. To represent them, a man of great character, unparalleled resume, and the single greatest ambassador motorcycle drag racing has ever known. To speak on behalf of himself and his friend and business partner, Byron Hines, please welcome Terry Vance.
Well, I hired the right guy for that job, didn't I? Thank you, Brian. That was spectacular. It's pretty hard to put into words the relationship that Byron and I have had for all these years. It's like he's not a normal guy, and he's really sorry he can't be here tonight, sort of. You know how it is. And I think he's sitting home probably laughing because I'm up here by myself. But we've been friends since we were kids in high school, or me. I just came out of high school. Byron just came home from Vietnam, and we met at Lions Drag Strip. We were in the water box, or not in the water box, but near the water box, when Don lost his foot in the burnout there at Lions Drag Strip. We were at Lions when he brought the first rear-engine car out. We've been around for so many things in this sport, you guys. I saw Dale Armstrong push Kenny Bernstein to 300 miles an hour. I saw the famous Raymond Beetle crash at Dallas, right? There's so many things I've seen that in this sport, and there's so much that I owe to this sport because our business could not have survived and flourished the way it did without drag racing. I really feel like I owe the sport. Jim had made a really good comment about all of us, all the inductees, loving the sport. We really do, but I really feel like it, and I really mean it, you guys. I feel like I owe this sport something, and I'm trying to do everything I can to give back to it because it really is important. What am I doing? I'm getting all choked up. But, I mean, to have my kid here working at NHRA, it's a wonderful thing. I'm really happy about it, and I'm glad that, like Brian said, he's pushing it forward, and that's really a great thing. But in all these years that I've seen all this stuff, you guys, I started racing at Lions in 1971, I think it was my first year. I was sitting at the dinner table with my family, and my dad says to me, it's totally quiet, "Hey, Terry, something really strange has happened." And I said, "What's that, Dad?" He said, "My motorcycle has developed a head gasket leak sitting in the garage. How is that possible?" Sorry, Dad, you know, I mean, but he was cool about it. He really understood. And next thing you know, I took his handlebars off, I put low bars on it, and the next thing I was going to all the bracket races. And I was telling Bill Bader, we used to run from Irwindale to Orange County to Fontana to Lions for the bracket races to make a couple $100 for the weekend. I mean, I was actually not working for 6 or 8 months because I was just bracket racing. So having a great time and having a really good life of, you know, when I was a kid like that. So, and the things that drag racing can give me, they've given me my relationship and my, you know, my meeting Byron at the drag strip. That's where we met. And we just really enjoyed working with each other. We enjoyed racing. And next thing you know, we were business partners and away we went. And Brian, one of the things you are wrong about, Byron was the talent in this duo between him and I. Trust me, anybody could have rode his motorcycles and won. And he was really, really a special guy. A great engineer, a great visionary. I mean, he built so many motorcycles. He built a top gas motorcycle for me that we raced for 2 solid seasons and never lost a race. So, I mean, it was just really a great partnership. And over all these years that we've been together, more than 50 now, getting real close to 50, I think, we've never even gotten into an argument or had any kind of fight. He's just a wonderful person, and if you've ever been around his son, Andrew Hines, you see exactly what Byron was like when I was a kid. These guys are really stellar kids, and they're doing a great job with the company and doing some great stuff. But of all these things that I've seen and all the things that have happened over the years that I'm really proud to be involved in, I have to tell you something. One of the most significant things that happened last year was Gage Herrera and Andrew and Eddie and the guys with their win streak. It was the longest win streak in the history of our sport. That's really significant, you guys, and we're really, really proud of it, just like I'm proud to be here tonight. Thank you very much, and congratulations to all the inductees tonight. Thank you.
Just ahead, a 4-time Nitro champion, 3 in Top Fuel, 1 in Funny Car, Gary Scelzi gives his much-awaited acceptance speech. And the founder of Summit Racing Equipment, Paul Scelzi, wins the Founders Award. Special thanks to Roy Hills Drag Racing School for supporting the Hall of Fame since 2004, and NHRA. The National Hot Rod Association celebrates their 75th season of action in 2026. Thank you, NHRA.
Thieves break into over 1 million vehicles in the United States every year, so protect your valuables with Boosted Safe. Boosted Safe locks and disguises your valuables in plain sight and opens in just seconds. Protect and secure full-size laptops, camera gear, personal protection tools, and more. Boosted Safe looks just like a child's booster seat, it clips into your car just like a booster seat, and it can only be removed by you. Latch, dash, and stash with Boosted Safe. BoostedSafe.com.
Coming down the home stretch for the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Gary Scelzi's getting warmed up for his big induction speak. I do want to mention Richard Shute, who is missing his first ever International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony. The man is a genuine legend, and without auto imagery, we would not be able to document these ceremonies. Richard, I know you're out there. We miss you. We thank you, and he is a Hall of Famer as well. Richard, we hope to see you next year. It is time for our next inductee. Here's Big Daddy.
Award is given annually to someone who's not very well known but has made a major contribution to drag racing. That person tonight is Paul Scelzi. He founded Summit Racing in 1968. That company has grown to be one of the major suppliers of high-performance parts for enthusiasts around the world. What a wonderful deal to be able to just call up on the phone and get your parts shipped overnight. I might add that Summit Racing was my major sponsor in 2003, at which time I turned my fastest speed, 323 miles an hour in 4.76 seconds. And the car sits behind me that I took that wonderful ride in. Please welcome Paul Scelzi to the Founders Award. Joe Costello will be making the presentation.
Anyone who has tried to build a race car, especially recently, knows how helpful SummitRacing.com is. They have a mobile application, they've got a website, they've got a catalog, and anything you could possibly need, even and especially parts for Pontiacs, are available. And this all started on a family farm, someone with an interest in mechanics, with a 1967 Corvette and a passion for performance. He was taught by his father the value of good parts, good equipment, and great customer service. Paul's passion became a business that has helped more racers and motorsports enthusiasts than anyone I could ever think of. Instead of going to your local parts store where maybe they have it or maybe they don't, they delivered to your door. It was a sea change in performance, and it all came from one family farm in New Jersey. Here to accept, on behalf of Paul Scelzi from Summit Racing Equipment, Mr. John Horner. John, come on up. And while John makes his way, we want to thank Summit Racing Equipment as our ring sponsors here at the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. We thank you for your support. Congratulations.
Good evening, and thank you to Don and the team at the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame for hosting us at this great event. And congratulations to all the inductees this evening. I have a message from Paul. Our industry is built on people working together. Late nights in the garage, tales from the pits, and the stories passed around at events like this one have the same common thread. People helping each other and strangers becoming friends. Summit Racing Equipment began in 1968 out of the love of performance hot rods and drag racing. The brief story is that, following a suggestion from an acquaintance in the performance industry, I established an agreement that allowed me to obtain performance parts more easily and at better prices than those available in my area. Initially, I made a few sales by offering a limited selection of items through a small newspaper ad. Soon, I discovered that friends and the other racers in the area were interested in purchasing a wider variety of items at similar discounts. As word spread, demand continued to grow. Today, Summit Racing Equipment serves enthusiasts around the world with the same mission: offer the parts people want at a great price and deliver them as quickly as possible. That's a quick way to cover 57 years, but the most important part in all of it is the people. Our customers who continue to trust us with every project, our industry partners who support our mission and help keep our industry going strong, and of course, the amazing team at Summit Racing, where people who started as strangers have become friends as they work together to deliver the best experience possible to every customer and to each other. They make the company what it is. The drag racing community is like no other, and it's a pleasure to be a part of it. To the racers and crew members, the friends and family who support them, and the track operators and workers who keep drag racing safe and accessible throughout the world. Thank you all for your hard work and dedication to this sport. May future generations be inspired to continue the great tradition of competing on the track while celebrating a shared passion for racing and the performance industry off the track. Many of us at Summit Racing have had the pleasure of meeting and working with drag racing legends. A lot of time at the track, partnerships with Team Summit racers and industry personalities, and of course, our long relationship with Don Garlits and his crew have given us the opportunity to turn strangers into great friends while supporting drag racing and the automotive aftermarket. To have my name added to the list of remarkable people in the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame is truly an honor. Thank you. I want to close with this message. At Summit Racing Equipment, our priority has always been to take care of our customers, employees, business partners, and the industry that supports us. That's what true enthusiasts do. Thank you.
And as we go to break, we just want to thank Summit Racing Equipment once again for supporting the program, for supporting Big Daddy, and supporting the ring sponsorship for the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Summit Racing Equipment, everybody.
We're coming up on the finish line of this International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony, which means Gary Scelzi is warming up. Gary Scelzi's induction speech is ahead. Thank you to Lavelle Productions and Hilton University Hotel in Gainesville, Florida.
Gary Scelzi was one of the most versatile racers in drag racing history. He won races in Top Fuel, Funny Car, Top Alcohol Dragster, and Funny Car. His career lasted 20 years, and during that time, he won 43 national events and 3 Top Fuel championships and 1 Funny Car championship, beating John Force in the final deal. Please welcome Gary Scelzi to the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. I'll keep it short because Gary's going to have plenty to say. Austin Prock will make the presentation.
Good evening. I'm going to keep this nice, short, and sweet because Gary said he's trying to get lucky tonight and needs to get out of here. First off, I'd like to thank Don Garlits for putting this on, bringing all of these racers together, these great people, men and women, to enjoy a nice night and, get to share stories and look back on the history of this great sport. From my heart, I thank you for bringing my family and the Scelzi family together tonight. It's been a long time since all of us have been together in the same room, and we all grew up together. Those Scelzi kids over there are like brothers to me. We grew up on the road together in motorhomes. Julie was another mom to me, and Gary was just a badass. Secondly, it's about damn time, Gary Scelzi. You've been everyone's hero since you started in 1997, coming out right into Top Fuel and winning your two first events in the category. I don't think anybody else can say that. Your success, it's not what has made you great. Your 43 wins, one of 3 people to win in both category. That's something I hope I can add my name to one day, but that's a hell of a feat to do. Very incredible. I'd have to say what makes you great is your personality, the character that you brought to the sport. You were the funny guy of the pits. Everybody out here loved your personality, your enthusiasm. You could always make everybody laugh. You were so funny that you had your own segment on ESPN drag racing, Scelzi Says. And I can remember as a kid watching the drag races and just waiting for that new segment of Scelzi Says to come on TV and, get to see one of my heroes up there essentially making a fool of himself. My favorite one is when you went pit to pit and you worked on all the cars and you got fired every week. And I show it to everybody that I possibly can that's never seen any of the Scelzi Says, and Gary's leaning on the fence and he's like, "Oh yeah, this one's gonna be big, Del," and he's hanging over the fence, and all of a sudden Del comes by and the body blows off of it, and all he had to do was wipe the body off, and he couldn't even manage that, So, it's a hell of a career. I'm honored to stand up here. When I got the phone call saying that I was going to be the one to induct Gary Scelzi, I'm like, "Are you guys sure?" I don't even know if I was a champion by then. I'm like, I'm nobody. So very special. And like I said, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Welcome to the International Hall of Fame, Gary Scelzi.
Well, Austin Prock, not only can you drive a funny car, but you can talk your ass off too, huh? And he's not bad at drinking either. We kept him straight, John. Big, there's only one big, and that's Big Daddy. And you've been my idol since I was a little kid, and I read drag news before National Dragster. Learned all the names and all the deals, and all I ever wanted to do was drag race. And I had a lot of success in alcohol ranks, a lot of fun, met a lot of great people. Bob DeVore, Bob Wyman were some of the best people that I ever met. I still talk to them today. They take care of the sprint car that we have, and both boys run sprint cars. Gio with the World of Outlaws, and Dominic runs anything that's available. World of Outlaws, High Limit, local King of the West, everything, and I'm so proud of you boys. I can't tell you. And I'm glad that I finally received an accomplishment that you were able to see, and you're old enough to remember, and that at least Gio's old enough to remember. Very thankful. One of my best friends, Daniel Lasowski, I'm so glad that you came, and your wife, Debbie, and Todd, Joyce, and his wife, Tara. Sorry for putting you through this whole... You'll do anything for a free meal, I know you will, but maybe not anymore. I got so many great stories to tell. Knowing I'm a jokester, Kenny Bernstein, all the Top Fuel guys, I didn't know you weren't supposed to go in a trailer. You had to be invited in a trailer. Invited? Me? Yeah, okay. So I guess I finally knew I was making it when Kenny Bernstein was riding by on a bicycle, and I goosed him, and I think he liked it. Because he turned and he smiled at me, and then he remembered he was Kenny Bernstein, Mr. 300, and not supposed to smile, I guess. But anyway, he and Joe Amato and Mike Dunn and Daryl Gwynn called me, and I guess they had a fishing trip or something planned, or I don't know what the hell they had, something going on. He goes, look, I understand if you can't make it. I know you're going to the Hall of Fame. I think that's a great thing, and I don't know what kind of shape you're in, and I know you're overweight. I know you like to eat. But I'd like for you to come to this fishing tournament before the awards banquet, and they're going to film it, and they're going to do all this stuff. And he starts going on and on and on. He goes, yeah, he goes, all the guys that's ever won the Gator Nationals. So he goes on this big speech for about 10 minutes about, oh, come on, I hope you come, and hope you're doing okay. And I said, Daryl, I've never won the Gator Nationals. Click, boom, Hank, that's the end of the story. So anyway, I was afraid this was going to happen when you get these bright lights on me, and I've had a few cocktails, and there's a lot of people to thank, and a lot of great stories. And one of the things I got to do is I got to thank Alan Johnson, because I had a great time in alcohol, but never made it on the map. And if it wasn't for you hiring me and bringing me to Santa Maria, California, you want me to be there for a week while we build a car, because I want you to understand about a Top Fuel car. I want you to know how it's put together, all these things. So all we did was go out to eat at Elmer's and drank, played golf. My first foray in golf, 148. Okay? And that's cheating. So real quick, we're on a tee in Santa Maria Country Club. One goes this way and one goes this way, and I'm sitting there washing my ball because it's got sap all over the thing. And I'm clunk, 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 clunk. And I looked, and I was getting one of those Alan Johnson looks. I thought, what the hell is he looking at? Clang, 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 clang. Well, I didn't realize you're not supposed to talk on a tee, and you're not supposed to do a lot of things on a tee. Well, I learned pretty much what not to do. Anyway, so we get the car done on a Friday at like noon. Finally, the parts showed up. It's a really cool night in Santa Maria. We go to fire this thing up. Jim Heads happens to be there. Yeah, Jim, I'm telling that story. So Jim's there, and Alan's there, and I'm in awe. We have a mutual friend called Mike. His name is Mike Gordon, Mike Sherrill Gordon. I used to race alcohol with him. And so we stay there all week, get the car done, and we're going to fire the thing up. And Alan is over there, and he says, okay, look, we're going to start this thing on methanol. I'm going to switch over to nitro. I'm going to point to you open both fuel pumps, and then it starts on nitro. It starts on nitro, turn off one fuel pump. Then I'm going to tell you, let out the clutch, da-da-da, all this stuff. You got it? I got it. What did he say? So anyway, we got to start this thing, and I look like deer in a headlight, and I mean, I am not shitting you one bit. I looked at him, and I forgot everything he ever said. And he's grabbed my leg, pulled my foot off the clutch, pulling the fuel pumps, doing this and that and all that stuff. We get done, the car's mean and nasty. Get in the car, and I leave, and him, Jim Head, and everybody's just laughing on the ground. They're thinking this is the funniest thing in the world. I called my wife, Julianne, at 35 years. She's so lucky to have me. That beautiful thing. And I said, man, she goes, what's the matter? She goes, you don't sound right. I said, I'm not right. I said, I got to call out and tell him I can't do this. She goes, what? I said, you heard me. I said, I can't do this. This thing is banging and popping and making noise and stuff, and they're laughing at me, and I don't even know what Alan told me, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And through the grace of God and Jeff Garvin, I know you're out here somewhere, who wrote notes on everything to do on a warm-up, and I studied those notes day and night for a week. And we went to Bakersfield to get me 3 laps in, and I did everything perfect. And it was the greatest thing I ever did. I mean, I had no idea how much power those things have. Now their week sucks. But Alan, thank you so much, and your family treating me the way you did. And it was very tough shoes to fill, Blaine's, but I'm glad it was me that got the call, and very happy for that. Mike Neff, I see you're sitting over there too. Pretty much my only 2 crew chiefs. I mean, Richard Hogan's here. I appreciate you, Richard, and Todd Okahara. We affectionately called Todd Okinawa. But I told you, Mike, you remember that first time in Vegas testing? We ate at I forget where we ate, somewhere, and I told you, you're going to be a world champion someday. And you looked at me like I was on methamphetamines, but I wasn't. And you were a world champ, and you brought me one here, too. So 1 in funny car, 1 in top fuel. Greatest thing ever. Jimmy and Jill, I want to thank you. Jimmy, we came this close to racing one day with the kids and everything. Nobody knows that. There was $3 million short. I don't know what happened to that. But it must have been Joe Biden, right? Oh, wait a minute. That wasn't billion. That was million. That was peanuts. But these kids have all been best friends for forever, since they could crawl. And every time they did something wrong, we knew about it before it happened. So from them stealing the blocks on the drag strip, we ran out Pomona on a Saturday night. I think it was the 50th anniversary or something of NHRA. I don't remember what. Phil would know. He knows everything. Or Jeff would. And, yeah. So the policeman comes in the morning and says, hey, Gary, I got to talk to you about your boys. So, what do you want to know about my boys? So, well, they stole the blocks that are on the drag strip. I said, my boys? I mean, Julie's boys? They're not my kids. I don't know them. And he said, yeah, can you open up one of the compartments in the motorhome? I said, sure. Open it up, and there seems to be all these little orange blocks. The Proc boys and the Scelzi boys decided they didn't need them. They must not need them. They left them out overnight. Well, not anymore. So there they were. There's a million stories, a million times. The time of dumping the crapper in Chicago when Jimmy and I were having a few too many glasses of wine. A lot of stories. A lot of ones on the Learjet that I wish I could tell with Pa Everett, but can't tell those either. So I just found out this is going to be on CBS probably later. So sorry about this. And I got to thank my father, Monroe, who when I raced alcohol, there was a lot of parts that came in that were going to be for free, and they weren't for free. And I remember one time there was a bell housing came in that was $600, and I had $200 in a checking account. And he wanted to know how I was going to pay for it, and he did. My brother Mike, who there was other guys wanting to get money from him and wanting to have us sponsor other cars, and he said, no way, because the one driver's going to drive a car that we're going to sponsor is my brother. And my brother Jim, who was always behind me, who voted no, by the way, for drag racing, but always made sure that we always had the money and always had the backing, and everybody always let me off from work to go do it. So I'm glad you boys got to see it. I know Gio's got to go to Alabama or somewhere to race with the World of Outlaws. Good luck tomorrow. We'll be watching, and I love you all. And my wife of 35 years, you are the best. And all the bad decisions I was going to make in my life that I still made, because you were wrong most of the time. I love you with all my heart. And you're right. Pete Brothers, leave me a message on the phone. And Julie told me that only good things would happen. And Alan Johnson, you called me, and 3 of these later, and 1 in a funny car. Thank you, Pete Brothers, for not calling me. All right, guys. Thank you. And thank you, Austin.
And ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for the 2025 International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony. please proceed to the Hawthorne Room where you may get T-shirts and, of course, pick up anything else that you may need. Of course, we need all of our Hall of Fame inductees to stick around for photographs. And remember, this will be broadcast on CBS Sports in the future. Please stop by the Don Garlits Museum of Drag Racing as you head south. And remember, the Drag Racing Hall of Famers of the future will be racing this weekend at the start of the 2025 Mission Foods Drag Racing Series season, the Amalie Motor Oil NHRA Gator Nationals. Thank you all. Have a great night. Yeah? Good. Inductees, please report to the stage. All inductees, report to the stage for photographs. Spencer Hyde in the house.